All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the council meeting of June 5th, 2023 to order. First, can everyone stand for the playing of the national anthem?
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Car ton bras s'est porté le paix, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Niagara Region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendoronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and the town of Grimsby stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we need a mover and seconder for approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Freg, second by Councillor Vardy. Moved by Councillor Freg, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that the June 5th, 2023 council meeting agenda be approved. All in favor? That's carried. We have our first delegation. Wait, I actually have an announcement, don't I? It's not in here. All right, just before our announcement, our delegation of the Regional Police, Chief Brian McCulloch, I have a statement of support to read for Pride Month. The town of Grimsby would like to acknowledge the 2 LGBTQ+ residents and their supporters that live in and visit Grimsby. On behalf of the town and members of council, we welcome you, we support you, and we stand with you. We would also like to acknowledge that International Pride Month is in June. Pride Month stands for courage, the courage of all those in previous generations and today who proudly live with their truth. It stands for justice, both the steps we have taken and the steps we need to take. And above all, Pride Month stands for love, being able to love yourself and love whoever you want. Representation matters, recognition matters, but there's something else that matters, results. Town Council is committed to making Grimsby a community that is welcoming and inclusive to all. So this evening we celebrate, but tomorrow we get back to work. Progress won't come easy, but we are going to stand strong and stand together. To conclude, I want to wish all of our 2 LGBTQ+ residents, their supporters, and everyone here a happy Pride Month. Up next, we need a mover and seconder for the delegation of Chief Brian McCulloch tonight. Councillor Charwa, Councillor Howe. Welcome, Chief McCullough. Nice to have you here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Council, for the opportunity to be here this afternoon to be able to share some insights into the Niagara Regional Police Service. I'll keep my opening comments brief before turning the presentation over to Staff Sergeant Chris Lemich, who's here with me, who I know most of you are familiar with as the commander for 8th District. When we look at serving our community as a command team, we have three overarching guiding principles, and that's assisting victims of crime, member wellness, and community engagement. Coming out of the pandemic, we've been able to attend community events again to engage with members of the public. The recent Grimsby Community Safety Day, as we started Police Week in 2023, was another opportunity to be able to connect with families and young children and be able to hear any concerns directly from the community. With the Police Week theme of building bridges, celebrating police community partnerships, it's through these relationships and our partnerships with our municipalities and local councils that we're able to ensure a safer and more inclusive Niagara for all who live here and for those who visit our Niagara region. With me today, I'm joined by the Chair of the Police Services Board, Ms. Jen Lawson, Inspector Sandy Staniforth, who oversees district operations for the Grimsby 8th District area. I often say that the district commander, who is Chris Lemich, is like the local chief of police. They really should be your first point of contact when you're dealing with a local issue. Having said that now, I'll turn it over to Staff Sergeant Chris Lemich for the presentation, and I'll be available for any questions that you may have following the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council, for having us here today and for giving us this opportunity to speak. Simply put, here's our mission statement. The Niagara Regional Police Service is dedicated to serving and protecting residents and visitors within the regional municipality of Niagara. In partnership with the community, we shall provide quality policing services with integrity, diligence, and sensitivity. Next slide, please. As you are likely aware, Senior Structure Command consists of our Chief of Police, Brian McCullough, supported by two deputies, Deputy Chief of Police for Operational Services, Brett Flynn, and Deputy Chief of Police for Support Services, Bill Forty. Here's a quick overview of our current organizational structure. Much like many large organizations, it shows the scope of the services and the areas of expertise within the Niagara Regional Police Service. From a uniform perspective, we have 764 sworn members as part of our authorized strength. From the Chief of Police, 2 deputies, 5 superintendents, 14 inspectors, 30 staff sergeants, 105 sergeants, and 607 constables. On the professional side, we have 336 members consisting of 1 director, 15 managers, and 315 support personnel. Next slide. Breaking down the organizational chart further, I wanted to give you a snapshot of the various police programs that we have here in Niagara. From executive services, district operations, which would be better known as frontline policing, as well as operational support services. Investigative services are resources above and beyond the number of specialty assigned patrol officers, able to assist with more complex needs and investigations, such as our Special Victims Unit, consisting of domestic violence and child abuse, as well as our emergency services group, including canine, tactical officers, traffic enforcement, just to name a few. However, most members of the public only see the frontline uniformed officer driving within their community and answering calls for service. But at each time, these specialty units can be deployed to assist where appropriate for that tailored response. Further, we also have our corporate services, including technology services, operational support, and roles such as 911 communications, the Real-Time Operations Center, and court services. To demonstrate how all of these units can work together at any given point in time within our region, I'll give you an example of a robbery with a firearm call where a suspect may have fled on foot. The call to police starts with our communications unit, where that initial 911 call is received and fielded, processed and dispatched for a frontline response. Depending on location of the robbery and the information available at the time, our Real-Time Operations Center will immediately look to access cameras visible in the area that frontline uniform response is the initial emergency response. Officers will attend the scene, secure it, render aid to any victims, and ensure public safety. Look to locate a suspect. Our K-9 unit and emergency task unit would be activated due to the suspect fleeing and the mention of a firearm in the offense. Also, additional resources may be needed, and members of our traffic enforcement unit, for example, can be called upon to assist to establish a perimeter. District detectives or specialty detectives would then be notified and would attend to investigate, interview, take statements, conduct a personal and video canvass. Our forensic services unit would be called out to process the scene and gather any evidence that may be found. Our corporate communications team would be looped in to ensure that media releases are prepared and would respond to any relevant media inquiries. When an arrest is made, that person would be taken into custody and brought to our central holding unit, where they would be processed by police officers and special constables. There's definitely a lot of areas of policing behind the scenes, not to mention our mechanics and staff and fleet services that keep our cars running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Our IT personnel are responsible for everything from phones to cameras to computers. Our finance and human resources personnel, along with our career development unit, recruiting unit, and members of our training unit, which all help to support our visible response. Looking year over year, there's a consistent increase in calls for service, and this is on a Niagara perspective. From 2021, we saw a 0.3% increase, which can be partially attributed to initial dip in calls for service due to the pandemic, but also an overall increase in call volume. With respect to the town of Grimsby, year over year, there's an increase in calls for service that was a little bit higher at 21%, which can be attributed to the growing population, as well as the increase in visitors from the area, or to the area rather, from the GTHA. Officers assigned to 8 District, which is Grimsby, Lincoln, and West Lincoln, are responsible for patrolling 620 square kilometers, which represents a little over 33% of the Niagara region's entire square kilometer land space. The town of Grimsby encompasses 68.71 square kilometers of our patrol territory. In Grimsby, when reviewing common criminal investigations, there was a slight increase in the number of break-ins between 2022 and 2021. We did see a significant increase in theft of motor vehicles over last year, which was a 117% increase. We have seen a similar trend in neighboring areas such as Peel and Halton. We are continuing to work collaboratively with our service to mitigate these thefts and educate owners on how to take measures to safeguard their vehicles, such as environmental awareness, as well as the use of Faraday bags or boxes. We saw theft from autos remain steady from 2021 to 2022, with officers regularly proactively combating this issue through programs such as Lock It or Lose It and our social media campaigns. It's again worth noting that the actual number of reports overall is relatively low. With respect to speeding and traffic enforcement, 332 provincial offense notices were issued in 2022 related to speed violations. Speed enforcement programs such as Project Speed Alert, which is a proactive patrol focus on rural areas to combat speeding, as well as a collaborative partnership with the Niagara region and their Vision Zero program, which aims to make roads safer and eliminate injuries, fatalities across the Niagara region. As well, we're aware of the community safety zones, and we're committed to protecting our most vulnerable members, and they're at Park Elementary School and Blessed Trinity Catholic School. In addition, I encourage everyone with specific traffic concerns to utilize our traffic hotline, which directs and goes directly to our traffic enforcement unit to make them aware they conduct proactive patrols in area of concern to address these issues. And the number 289-248-1060 is that specific traffic hotline. Officers in 8th District take part in several crime prevention and community engagement initiatives throughout the year. For example, in Grimsby, officers regularly take part in the Lock It or Lose It campaign all year long, involves themselves in conducting park and premise checks throughout the course of their night shifts in an effort to discourage disruptive loitering and vandalism in parks within the town. Over the course of last year, officers have specifically patrolled the commercial area around the Superstore as well as the Grimsby Go common parking lot in an effort to combat theft from autos. Recognizing that a number of issues reported by residents involve heavy truck traffic, including those trucks that are bypassing the Vineland scales and make their way through Grimsby. Officers in 8th District conduct numerous truck safety blitzes with our law enforcement partners, including the MTO, OPP, Hamilton Police, and I've already done 3 such truck safety inspection days so far this year, with another 4 scheduled to be completed before the year's out. The positive work of our officers is regularly highlighted on our 8th District Twitter account, which has over 1,200 followers, and I'll comment that that's an 18% increase from last year. So the positive message is getting out and the word is getting out, so I encourage all of you to follow it. It also is an important item to get items of public safety out, but it also does showcase the good work that our officers are doing on a daily basis. Mr. Mayor, through you, on behalf of Chief McCullough, Inspector Staniforth, and myself, thank you, and we'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you very much for your attendance and presentation. And questions from council? Councillor Sharwal.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. I appreciate you both being here, all of you actually being here. I just have a few points for feedback and then a few questions, if that's okay. First one relates to the hours of operation for Station 8. Currently, it's Monday to Friday, 8 till 2:30 p.m., and then Saturdays and Sundays are closed. My concern is that anybody working a 9-to-5 job is unavailable, cannot come in, cannot see a police officer if they need to. I'm wondering if there's any chance that we can have a day that is open to extend past 2:30.
Did you want to take that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is our administrative functions that are closed or only open during those select hours. If any member of the community does require a police officer or speak to a police officer, they can call our communications unit. We will happily meet them at 8th District at 45 Clark. And there's a phone box that's directly outside the main entrance door for members of the community to use during nights and weekends. Should the need arise and they wish to speak to a police officer, there will be one dispatched, and we'd be more than happy to listen to them, take any complaint they may have, and render any assistance that is required.
Thank you. My next point has to do with follow-up. So I've heard this from a few different residents that have called the police. These are Grimsby residents. To issue a report, and the communication was lacking as far as follow-up in the reports, and having to call several times. So that's just something, again, if you could maybe take that back or improve, or I don't know if you have suggestions on how we can improve communication, that would also be appreciated.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry they've had that negative experience, and I'll throw this out to everyone at council. If they are having issues connecting with the initial reporting officer or one of the detectives that is assigned to their investigation, please by all means give me a call. I am at 8th District, that's where I'm stationed, that's where I am, and I will assist and facilitate that callback and that return call for service. So Again, I apologize if some of the residents and constituents are having those follow-up issues, but please don't be afraid to elevate those concerns to my level, and I will assist them and ensure that that communication gap is bridged.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I will be calling. So that's great. So lastly, actually not lastly, and another one before my last point has to do with traffic stops for speeding. Now I know that it's quite common to have, there's a police officer will hit at people near on the escarpment by the fire station, where there are no pedestrians and the traffic is like 50 kilometers an hour. So that's not necessarily a safety concern there. I would like to see some police blitzes if possible. Like I know in my area, I'm Ward 3, Lake Street is a concern, all hours. If we could possibly coordinate some stops in that area and any of the areas where there are a lot of children, a lot of pedestrians, because I feel like those are the areas that we need policing. So, do you have something to say?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your concern, and I will take that back to my district patrol sergeants and let that be known, so thank you.
Thank you. Last one now. So we have protesters that are at the Food Basics Plaza every Saturday. We do know about the ones on Oaks Road, and nothing's being done about the ones that are at Food Basics every Saturday. I believe they travel here from out of town. And I know we've spoken before and, have let it continue because it's a peaceful protest. However, I found that as the months have gone on, it's escalated. And I had a resident tell me yesterday that this is Pride Month, and a couple from the LGBTQ community was walking by, and protesters were throwing out slurs and just disgusting, vulgar language. It's hate, first of all. So where is that line? We have seen these protesters also step onto the road, handing out pamphlets and whatever. So my question is, when is it to the point where it's a safety matter and somebody's going to intervene? If they want to possibly move it to another section that is not as dangerous, if that's a possibility. I'm looking for solutions.
Yeah, I think we all are in this arena. With that in mind, I think we also have to recognize that it is a protected right under the Charter. So we are doing our utmost to balance charter rights with somebody who has the protected right to demonstrate. The line gets crossed when there's criminality. When there's criminal actions that have been committed, by all means, have your constituents call us and make us aware of those situations where there's threatening behavior, where there's racial slurs or slurs against any one of the equity-deserving groups within our community. That's where I would say that the line gets drawn.
I appreciate that. I will follow up with you as well to get the contact information. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome.
Councillor Howe.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Staff Sergeant, you mentioned in your presentation community school zones and Trinity, understandable, and down at Park, I believe. But it's in central school. Would that not come into the realm, or even where Nels is? I'm just wondering how it works out.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I only highlighted 2. I'm aware there are other community safety zones within the municipality, so I just noted a couple. I'm aware that there are others, and enforcement action does take place in those community safety zones. As I said, we are trying to protect our most vulnerable.
Thank you.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, excuse me. So the data that you showed in the presentation, it said Grimsby. Is it the district, is it 8th District or is it Grimsby specific? So, I mean, is it related to all of West Niagara? Because I know that that office, that facility services a wide, all of West Niagara pretty much. So is it for all of the areas or just Grimsby?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question. The statistics that I spoke about were Grimsby specific. As you said, I will acknowledge 8th District does police also Lincoln and West Lincoln, but the crime stats that I spoke of were Grimsby centric and Grimsby specific.
Okay, this might be more of a question for the chief, through you, Mayor, again. So how does Niagara Regional Police delegate or allocate, resources throughout the region? So how is the decision made about how much policing is going to happen in Grimsby, how much of the budget is going to be spent, and not just Grimsby, but in all municipalities, obviously. We're asking about Grimsby, but how's the decision to allocate resources made, about how many officers to assign to a municipality or to a district, and how much of a budget to allocate to a district?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, it's really a combination of collective agreements, which certainly plays into minimum staffing requirements that we're required to have in each of the districts. But it's also based on our call volume data, so that we can look at the data across our region and allocate resources proportionately based on calls for service. But saying that as well, there's also an officer safety component, because some of our districts may not necessarily have the call volume, but because of the area that they police, there is an officer safety component that's built into that, and then based on the number of resources, determines the budget that's associated with each of the districts.
Again, through you, Mayor, thank you. So the reason why I ask it, and it's kind of a question I would ask anybody, whether it's hospital services or fire, is because I would love to see a comparison of and I know that this is a regional as a whole question, not just a regional police question, but a comparison of the amount of money that's collected from Grimsby taxpayers for regional policing compared to what's being spent in Grimsby. And if there's any way to see that kind of data, that would be important data for us to get our head around the way that our tax dollars are being spent, because that's what we're all here about, and that's not a judgment. Please don't misunderstand me. It's just it's being able to understand how A equals B is an important thing for all of us, I think. So I don't know if that data is out there and if it can be put together, but I would love to see that. It's just.
Thank you for the question. I think the challenge with that is that, as was outlined in the presentation, it's not just the uniform officers that, I know that that's what you typically see here in Grimsby, but when there's a high-risk tactical call, you get our tactical unit here. When there's a water rescue that happens on Lake Ontario, just out, within the confines of Grimsby, you get our marine unit, you get our underwater search recovery unit. If there's a found explosive in the municipal building here, you get our explosive disposal unit. So it's very, very difficult to determine exactly how many resources you're getting, because it is really on an incident-driven basis. If there's a child abuse investigation, a homicide, you name it, you get the full resources that are available from the Niagara Regional Police Service to assist with whatever investigation is taking place within the confines of Grimsby.
Thank you. Now, and I think we all understand there are economies of scale that occur with, having a regional police service. You have one of those tactical units, or what you need for the entire region, and all of those things. It's just, the concern is always that we're subsidizing other municipalities. I think from my perspective, it's always been the feeling that the taxes collected don't equal and that, again, It's not a judgment, it's just a feeling that we get. You talk about large geographic areas, let's take the tactical stuff outside, but the large geographical areas, for example, that have to be policed that are not in Grimsby, because Grimsby from a geographic perspective is large, but it's not Waynfleet or one of these larger municipal areas with small populations that are sprawled out. So there are challenges that come with that we're paying for, but we don't see the benefit of, is my point. I'll move on, though, because, and your answer was excellent. Sorry, go ahead.
If I could just clarify as well, that the Niagara Regional Police or the Niagara Regional Police Services Board is not responsible for allocating the tax allocation for each of the municipalities. So that's not something that we're responsible for. We put a budget forward to regional council, it gets approved, and then regional council determines what the appropriate mill rate is for each of the municipalities.
Thank you for that clarification. We are geographically in a unique position, obviously because we're adjacent to Hamilton, and our most densely populated area in Grimsby is a stone's throw from the border of Winona. So are there unique challenges that come with having to partner with Hamilton Regional Police and having, is there a partnership that occurs in those kinds of situations? Because the border's right there, and I can imagine that policing doesn't stop because there's a border there. So what are some of the challenges that occur as a result of that proximity?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the question. The reality is that that collaboration doesn't just take place with Hamilton, because the reality is that we're seeing a very mobile criminal element that's quite transient. We're seeing a lot of street gangs in particular that have infiltrated the Niagara region from the GTA. So there is tremendous collaboration that's taking place with all of our municipal partners in policing, whether it's the Peel region, Toronto, Durham, OPP, Peel, Halton, and Hamilton, and Canada Border Services as well, because we are uniquely situated with 4 border crossings as well. So that collaboration is taking place on a daily basis, whether it's through our frontline uniform officers or through our various intelligence units or detective offices on a very regular basis.
Last one. I've got lots more, but this is the last. I want to give other people a chance. So Grimsby has changed a great deal in my lifetime. You know, we've gone from a very rural community that was a bedroom community to one that is a lot more densely populated and has a lot more, we have a lot more challenges. You mentioned things like vehicle theft. With fentanyl and other opiates, are you seeing an increase in those types of problems in Grimsby? And how is Niagara Regional Police Services dealing with those types of, Grimsby specifically, but across the region? How are you dealing with the increase in that type of activity, and how have you seen a change in our municipality over the years, I guess is the question.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, your municipality is certainly no different than the other 11 municipalities. There's been significant change that's occurred. Unique social, very complex social issues that are impacting municipalities all across the province, quite frankly. I would say that Grimsby is quite unique within the Niagara region in that you don't share some of the other problems that some of our other municipalities in the Niagara region have, such as a significant homeless issue and encampments that are set up, which has really changed the complexity of policing. So when our officers are responding to calls for service now, oftentimes there are no easy solutions to those issues. There's been case law that has indicated that we can't just remove somebody from a homeless encampment and put them out to nowhere. We have to be able to put them into some sort of a housing, temporary housing. So it becomes very, very complicated. A lot of what we've come to rely upon to address these, again, unique and challenging issues with where you have mental health issues, addictions issues, poverty and homelessness, with an overlapping criminal activity that's occurring within that segment as well, is we rely upon partnerships with all of our community partners to assist us in being able to get at the root causes, find people housing where we can do so, get people into treatment where we can do that, whether it's for mental health, whether it's for addictions, and again, collaborating with our police partners as well, given the increase in gun violence that we've seen here in the Niagara region, which can all be attributed to, not all, but a good part of that gun violence can be attributed to drug trafficking that's going on with the opioids, as you referenced.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to I wanted to commend some of your staff. When I wasn't on council, I made a complaint in the online, or not a complaint, I said that there was a speeding issue in my neighborhood. The officer followed up with a call. They did some policing on site and did speed checks on site, and then followed up and told, I wasn't there to answer the phone, but left a message saying, this is the number of tickets that were given as a result of that, and what was beginning, middle, and end, very communicative, and it was a positive experience. So I don't know that that's everybody's experience, but I know that that's my experience. So I wanted to pass on that thank you as a citizen, besides being a member of council, because that was a positive experience, really well done by the staff in that situation. So thanks.
Thank you, and that's the experience that we hope everybody enjoys, and that's certainly what we aim for. So thank you.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor. First, I apologize for getting up and down. I've got a back problem. We see that speeding has gone up dramatically from the statistics that you showed. I can't quite remember, it was about 20% in your slide presentation?
I don't recall the speed-related metric.
I think he showed the number of traffic tickets that have been issued in Grimsby specifically.
All right, so that would imply speeding, I think, for the most part, maybe not exclusively. I feel quite worried for residents because many streets in Grimsby, many surveys don't have sidewalks. And currently the speed limit on residential streets is 50 kilometers an hour. I hope to propose to bring it down to 40 kilometers an hour. I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit, knowing that St. Catharines and even Lincoln are starting to do the same, and we're starting to see that across Ontario. What are some of your thoughts on that?
So with respect to speeding, obviously, anytime there's a collision involving whether it's a pedestrian, a cyclist, or another motor vehicle, the greater the speed, the more likely that the injuries are going to be more substantial. So anything you can do as a council to reduce speed so that if there are collisions, the impact or the outcomes end up being better, I think that's a positive.
Okay, thank you. And one last question. You mentioned Faraday boxes or Faraday covers. What are those? I'm asking because our car was stolen and it was eventually retrieved in Welland. I have a subsequent question to that, but if you can tell me what a Faraday is.
Yeah, so Faraday boxes are a tool that is used to prevent the signal from your key fob from being able to be intercepted. So the majority of car thefts that are occurring of late, individuals are able to intercept. They have electronic devices that are able to intercept the signal that's constantly emanating from your key fob, whether you realize it or not. And they're able to duplicate that signal to be able to enter into your vehicle and ultimately start your vehicle and drive off with it. So the Faraday pouch, Faraday bag, or Faraday box, if you were to Google them, you would find a plethora of them that you can buy. And what that essentially does is protects the signal from your fob from getting out and being intercepted.
Okay, thank you for that. And I guess my last question, and it goes back to when our car was stolen. It was retrieved 3 weeks later in Welland, I think, and with 2 people in it. They were ticketed, but they weren't arrested. And I kind of thought they should have been. Also thought it was really bold when one of the people said, well, how am I going to get back to Hamilton now? So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I would think if you stole a car, you'd at least go to jail for the night.
I don't know the circumstances surrounding your particular incident. Obviously, the officers responding, in order to lay a charge of theft, they have to be able to prove that those individuals actually stole your vehicle. But that said, there is other options in terms of being in possession of stolen property that may have applied. Again, I don't know the circumstances, but we can certainly look into that for you further.
Thank you very much, because I thought that was worth at least a night in jail. Because I figured these guys, they get a ticket. If they're going to steal your car, they're not going to show up for a ticket. So, I mean, I was just wondering, like, how there's not much of a disincentive there. But I appreciate your being able to look into that.
Yes, and if I could just speak just a little bit about the auto theft issue, because this is something that has seen a significant increase across Ontario, particularly the GTA. And organized crime is heavily involved in the theft of motor vehicles. And we've seen that a vast majority of these cars are going overseas. They're being sold at a substantial profit. So, when people say crime doesn't pay, crime in fact does pay. There's incentive for organized crime groups to get involved in these types of crimes. That said, we had Peel Regional Police and the Police Services Board hosted a auto theft summit back in February of this year. Myself and Chair Lawson attended at that summit, and there was representation from each of the police services. The chiefs and board chairs attended, really to collaborate and discuss how we can address the issue of car theft. And obviously education is a key component, and that's where we come in terms of, excuse me, of educating the public on how to prevent their cars from being stolen. But also enforcement is a key piece for us, and there's certainly a number of gaps that were identified in terms of how we can work more collaboratively together. We've advocated to the provincial government for additional funding so that we can create a provincial auto theft strategy, and we're optimistic that funding will be announced in the near future that will create a provincial auto theft unit that will specifically address and tackle this issue. A lot of the vehicles are being stolen and transported to the Port of Montreal and quickly loaded into shipping containers and shipped across Europe and into the Middle East as well, and Africa. So it's a huge problem, and one that the Niagara Regional Police are not going to solve on our own. So that's why it's important for us to collaborate with the RCMP, the OPP, Interpol, and all of our international partners as well.
Just want to thank you very much, Chief McCullough, for coming here tonight and to bringing your fellow officers. It's really appreciated.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very, very much, Chief. I'm not finished yet. Yes, I just have one question or comment. Now that our council has updated our firearms bylaw, I guess we're just waiting to hear back from the provincial treasurer so we can have a set fine. We just want to make sure that you're aware that our bylaw is updated and you're familiar with it now. So, all right. So,
okay. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And thank you very much for coming out this evening, and thank you, Jen, and other officers as well, and District Sergeant LeMay. Thank you, Chief, and very nice to see you here, and I commend you for coming out.
Thank you. If I could have just one ask of council, I think there's a gap that we've identified with regards to the significant development that we're seeing all across the region. And you know, you as councillors may be aware of the housing starts that are anticipated in 2023 or 2024 and beyond. You may have insights into the population growth and projections in that regard. We're running blind to it. We don't get that information. So any of that information would be incredibly helpful for us to be able to plan for the future in terms of growth of additional officers that may be required for policing 8th District and other municipalities across the province, or across the region, sorry.
Yeah, excellent point, Chief. What we will do is we'll certainly keep the communication lines open from our planning department, and because I'm going to give a planning update shortly, the province right now is in flux actually with what they're planning on doing, quite honestly. So they are, we're kind of finding out dribs and drabs as they come out. And certainly like the severance issue, they've already backtracked on that somewhat. So we're less in the dark, I guess, than you, but we are somewhat in the dark, and we're getting it out with quite short timelines to move forward. So we're trying to be as versatile as possible, but we'll certainly keep those communication lines open. So
terrific.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening. Moved by Councillor Charwa, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that the presentation from Chief Brian McCulloch be received. All in favor? That's carried. We're just going to take a 5-minute break right now, so we'll be back in 5. Thank you. right, welcome back, everyone. Calling the meeting to order again. First off, we'll start with the chairs of each of the standing committees, providing a short verbal summary of what occurred at their respective meetings. I'll start off with myself as Chair of Planning and Development. Matt Bruner took us through Bill 97 and the provincial planning statement and its implications, along with the other bills that are out there right now. What the province has done is they've removed growth targets, and they have somewhat abandoned the provincial policy statement and changed it with Bill 97 and the other bills that are out there. And one thing certainly with the provincial government and the Greenbelt, I think that most councils, certainly planning department in the town of Grimsby was following the right idea in infilling and proper planning principles. And I think that the way the government is moving forward in this piecemeal way and kind of throwing proper planning practices away somewhat by expanding into the Greenbelt and by looking forward to sprawl rather than infilling. I think we kind of had it the right way, and I really think that there is a better way to increase density and to increase more affordable housing. And I really do think it's by looking at individual sites and filling density from a smart planning perspective, and I really think that that's the way we need to move forward, and hopefully we can convince the provincial government to kind of see it that way. So now I'll move to Councillor DeFlavio from the Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. So just like the other committees of council, it was the first meeting for the new committee. We welcomed the lay members, which was nice. It was nice to have members of the public on the committee. We had a delegation from a resident who was expressing concerns about the location of new sidewalks in front of their home. It was an existing home being built at the end of a new roadway. The road's being extended, and there's going to be a sidewalk that goes from the new neighborhood across their lawn, and they didn't like the location of it. Staff expressed and clarified that it was because of the need for sight lines and because of the highway traffic manual guidelines that was the location of the sidewalk, and the committee agreed with them. There was a discussion of the 2023 in-road flexible signage pilot program. There were 32 different locations identified in Grimsby as potential locations. Staff decided on 12. 4 of those were previous locations, so Roberts Road and Kerman, places where you saw them before. You'll see them again, but there are also new locations where they're being tried out. Just to refresh people's memories, the in-road flexible signage program was the signs in the middle of the street that said, the speed was 50 kilometers an hour. It kind of reduced the lanes to make it a little bit more challenging for drivers to drive quickly. It's just part of a long-term strategy by our Public Works Department to reduce speeds. There have been considerable discussions about reducing the speed limits, and I think that that's something we'll definitely need to consider in the future. And the last item that I wanted to mention was a disposal of surplus lands. It's a pretty straightforward item. There were 4 parcels of land that were formerly part of cul-de-sacs. So, the way that a dead end happens is there's a big round area that goes in front of people's homes. Over the years, those cul-de-sacs became roads that extended, and there's no longer a need for the town to own those parcels of land in front of people's homes. So basically, they're just for legal reasons being given to for a minor transaction, legally deeded back over to those homeowners, because it doesn't make any sense from a administrative perspective for the town of Grimsby to own those parcels of land. So those were all the issues that we dealt with, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if people have them, Your Worship. Thank you.
Seeing no questions, Councillor Charwa from Community Service Committee.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. So we had our first meeting on May 23rd, and I was elected chair. Councillor Korstanji was elected vice chair. It was actually quite a quick meeting. Most of the reports actually went through consent, and since they weren't really contentious or anything, they went through. However, Councillor DeFlavio had commented that it would be nice in the future if we could have staff present just because there's so much work being done, and we would like the community to know about it. And also, I know all of you will be getting lots of questions, from residents. So I would like to just touch on most of the things that happened very briefly, though, just for your own information. So one of the first is that there was the creation of the Culture Advisory Committee. It's an amalgamation of two advisory boards, which were the Grimsby Public Art Gallery Advisory Board and the Grimsby Museum Advisory Board. So that's now one. We now have, the establishing bylaw also amalgamated the Public Art Gallery Board bylaw and the Grimsby Museum Advisory Board bylaw to better reflect current operations and anticipated future directions. We also approved free public swimming on heat warning days at the Grimsby Lions Pool. So anytime, it's predicted by staff that we're estimating 3 to 8 heat warning days per summer. So there'll be free swimming on those days. The anticipated loss is $1,000 for the season. So that's a huge benefit to the community. There has been quite a bit of interest in the Lions Pool programming again this year. It's enrollments are up 45% over last year. Staff are working hard to maximize available space when it's possible. There's some programs as well in the works for inclusion. So staff are preparing to host a community cafe in June that will invite community members to share ideas and thoughts about inclusion resources in our community. And staff are also working towards a monthly drop-in activity, specifically for people with disabilities and their families. So we'll announce more on that when we have that. They're hoping to launch the first activity in June. There have been quite a few events hosted, one being May 13th. There was the annual Community Safety Day at the Peach King Center, and it was a huge success. Event partners such as the Fire Department, Grimsby Hydro, Public Works, and the Niagara Regional Police led a great day for local families and residents. Staff estimate attendance of over 1,000 throughout the day. Staff are currently preparing to support the happening in Grimsby, which is in 2 weeks, June 15th to the 17th. There's some tree plantings upcoming. Victoria Terrace stairs are also just want to identify that there's work to be done there. The stairs have been identified as a safety issue in the park. They're currently closed, and there's an alternate access point to the park that will be used until a better plan for the staircase is finalized. The community in that area will have some say. Southward Park had an installation of a hardball diamond installation, so several of us councillors were there for the opening. Mayor Jordan threw the first pitch, and the baseball diamonds look great. Staff have heard great feedback. And there's now a permanent mound. A new permanent mound is also being placed at the Oaks Road baseball diamond, so it's a good day for baseball players. The rock snake, if you remember in Murray Park, was very popular, especially during COVID, where residents would add their rocks, paint them, add them, and staff actually had to remove them over the winter, just whatever. And residents noticed. They noticed, and our staff put them aside, and now they're back. They've created this lovely little sand area. People are very excited about it. So positive feedback from that. We have the 40 Mile Creek pedestrian bridge, which is on track. We'll give some more information about that once it becomes available with the tendering process. I think, what else was there? And there are park renewals happening. Two park renewals. One is happening at Gage Park, and the other one is at Dunn Robin Park. So lots going on, community services. I hit on most of it. Ooh, perfect. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Sharwa. Need a mover and seconder for the minute approval. Councillor DeFlavio. Councillor
Mr. Mayor, I wanted to lift the Public Works minutes.
Can we just get a move a second?
Yeah, we'll just get a mover and seconder to get it on the floor, and then you can lift. So we have Councillor DeFlavio and Councillor Howe. So Councillor Vardy, you'd like to lift the Public Works Committee?
Yes, please.
The May 23rd Public Works Committee?
Yeah, yes, please.
Which item would you like to lift?
The item relating to the bollards.
Oh, the flexible, in-road flexible sign.
The in-road flexible signs.
It's
So that-
PW 23006. PW 23006.
Okay. From the May 23rd agenda?
So that's,
May 23rd, yeah.
Okay, so we need a mover seconder to read it.
all right. So we just need a seconder to lift that resolution? Councillor Frake? Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that PW 23-006 from the May 23rd, 2023 minutes of May 23rd be lifted for separate consideration. All in favor to lift that? That's carried. All right, so we'll have separate discussion on that. Go ahead, Councillor Vardy. It's been lifted.
Okay, thank you very much. And sorry I had to leave. I'm just wondering why that there were no bollards on Dorchester Boulevard. When I thought that, I mean, I've received complaints about speeding on Dorchester, and I'm wondering why we're not, why Dorchester was not included in the 12 sites.
Brandon?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, Dorchester, I think as we talked about in the reports, we looked at 32 locations all across town. We narrowed those locations down to the top 12 hotspots. Dorchester Drive was not included as one of those hotspots. Used a number of means to kind of rank the where we felt the calming devices would be most effective and most easily for us to pilot and review the results. So fortunately, Dorchester Drive was not included in those top 12.
All right, thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Howe, resolved that the following meeting minutes be approved. Council, May 15th, 2023. Planning and Development Committee, May 17th, 2023. Public Works Committee, May 23rd, 2023. And Community Services Committee, May 24th, 2023. All in favor? That's carried. Now we move to Council Endorsement Package, Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Sharwa. Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Sharwa. Resolved that the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee Council Endorsement Package be approved. All in favor? That's carried. Now we move to item 10.1, 10.2, receipt of board minutes. Need a mover and seconder. Councillor Frake, Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that the following meeting minutes be received. Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee, May 9th, 2023. Committee of Adjustment, May 16th, 2023. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we move to Section 11, announcements. Does any councillor have any announcements? Councillor Sharwa.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. I have two announcements. The first one relates to our Grimsby rowers. So this weekend, the St. Catharines Rowing Club hosted the 76th Canadian Secondary School Rowing Association Regatta. So everybody knows rowing is my baby. So it was very nice to see that we had representation from Blessed Trinity and West Niagara Secondary School. And I'm happy to report that West Niagara was successful in a first place finish in the senior men's double. So I'd just like to congratulate them on their exceptional achievement. And the senior double was Matthew Winslade and Val Hudson. So congratulations. And second relates to our first ever Culture Gala happening this Thursday, June 8th from 7 to 10 p.m. at the library. It's a fundraiser in support of the Grimsby Museum, the Grimsby Art Gallery, and Library. It's all dedicated to fostering and encouraging an appreciation, sorry, I'm losing my voice, an appreciation for arts, literature, culture, and history in Grimsby. Tickets are still available. They're $75 online. All the information can be accessed on the Town of Grimsby website. Yes, it should be a great night out, and Councillor Howe and I will be there, and hopefully Councillor Frick and some other councillors as well. It's going to be a great night. Hopefully you can make it.
Thank you, Councillor Sharwa. Any other announcements? Councillor Howe.
If I can, just to add, those tickets also come with a $25 tax receipt.
Councillor DeFlavio.
I have an announcement.
Go ahead, Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that we had the first meeting of the Grimsby Green Committee, and our members are very excited to be looking at new policy options and new initiatives, and hopefully to get new grants that we can bring to the town to further the work of greening Grimsby. So we had a very successful meeting. We have a provisional chair and vice chair, and we're moving forward. We've added a meeting to the agenda on June 21st, and we're really looking forward to getting our work underway.
Thank you, Councillor Vardy. Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Worship, through you. As I've talked about many times, I coach basketball, and this past weekend was the last Ontario basketball tournament for my team, and unfortunately didn't win gold, came in fourth in our division, 20th in the province. But I do want to give a shout out to the U17 boys team that won gold this past weekend in their division. Winning gold, it doesn't matter what division you're in, is tough because you're matched up against teams that are at your own level, and everybody wants to win, and they brought back gold for Grimsby, so the town of Grimsby should be proud of them. They should be proud of themselves. They work hard for years and years to get to that level, so I just wanted to congratulate the U17 boys Grimsby Grizzlies basketball team on their gold medal this past weekend.
Great, thank you, Councillor DeFlavio. That's certainly winning an Ontario championship for the town. I know I've been involved in a couple in fastball, and it is you remember it forever. So it is quite an achievement to win with the Grimsby name on your uniform.
Yeah, it's always nice to go, and everybody has their own experience of Grimsby, so it's one of those things where you go and have a conversation with people and say, where are you from, because you see people from all over Ontario at these things, and people say, I stopped and picked cherries there, or I stopped and went to the restaurant downtown there that I really like, or I stopped at the beach there, and it's always nice to hear everybody's different experience of Grimsby. Bruce Trail, just different things that you hear from different people. So, yeah, it's one of those unifying experiences that's really nice and helps to put Grimsby on the map. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you. Now we need a mover and seconder for the consent report. Moved by Councillor Frake, seconder, Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that council hereby approves the following item and that the consent item be approved on the recommendations as contained therein. PA 23-21, A, that report PA 23-21, Council Direction Report 42 Roberts Road, 38 Roberts Road, 122 Main Street West, 50, 52, and 54 Park Road North, dated June 5th, 2023, be received, and that council proceed with the passing of the designation bylaws for the properties at 42 Roberts Road, 38 Roberts Road, 122 Main Street West, and 50 to 52 and 54 Park Road North. All in favor? That's carried. Okay. So someone, all right. Okay, now we move to discussion reports, DCS 23-15, delegation authority for the Peach King Center. Need a mover and seconder. Councillor Charwa, Councillor DeFlavio. Good evening, Sarah. Nice to see you.
Good evening, Mayor Jordan. Nice to see all of you as well. I'll keep my remarks on this report fairly brief. I know there's a busy agenda this evening, but the intention of this report is to allow us to utilize the construction management methodology for the Peach King Center expansion report. With the way the procurement is written, it does give some restrictions on amending reports, but the way the construction methodology works is you sort of start at a lower level and you add the planned and anticipated contracts in as you go on. So it's amending the contract, but it is doing so within the budget. In order to make sure that we're agile and we're able to respond quickly, we are asking for this delegation of authority within the approved budget so that we can continue forward with this method. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Charwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. So I don't have any issues with with the sign off. However, I would like to possibly add a few people that, and I just want to give my explanation. So really, it's going to be council and the committee, the Community Services Committee, that are going to be scrutinized later if we're going over budget. And I just want to have an extra layer of accountability as far as having discussions about approving items that are so large in the budget. So I would like to suggest if we could have a task force that, and it would be yourself, the CAO, the treasurer, myself as the chair of community services, and our vice chair, Councillor Kristanji, just that there needs to be a consensus of verbal approval before we go ahead and and approve $100,000 or above, if that's possible. And it's just a quick verbal, just so that we're all on the same page. And if there isn't a consensus, then it should come to council.
May I, Mayor? Just for clarification, Councillor, are you saying for the items 100,000 and above only? Just because what can happen too is because it's cumulative, they can be smaller items again, just the way it's written, just for clarification.
So the one is for up to $100,000, right? And then the other one is in excess of 100,000. So I would say, I don't know, if we can split it, if it's 50,000 and above, I think a conversation, like it doesn't have to be a whole big ordeal. I think you can usually communicate pretty quickly with myself or Councillor Korstanji and then have that conversation, and then hopefully it'll move pretty quickly, if that's okay. Or we can do it for 100,000, whatever. I just feel like we're going to be the ones that are going to be, really scrutinized if this goes way over budget.
I'll defer as well to the CIO on this. So the one thing just to keep in mind is there's a couple of things that can lead to amendments too, right? There's the big packages for sure, but also as construction actually occurs, it could be change orders that just do need to be very, quick and responsive so that we're not delaying, and they might be very small items, so just want to make sure we kind of build it so that you're getting what you need and you feel confident and comfortable. I completely understand what you're asking for, but just that we also have that ability to be quickly responsive to any small items. So that would be my only feedback, is just making sure we have that balance.
Okay, well, if it's $100,000, that's not a small item. So if maybe it's for things that are 100,000 and above, if we could do that. And I'm talking about like a day or two to turn it around, just to ask some questions, see if we can communicate. And we have some very experienced committee members that work in other municipalities that I'm sure that might have resources available as well. So if we can use that time.
Councillor Howe.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I have a difficulty, and it probably is just the way I read it. To me, the first line in this whole process would be the construction manager, and we don't have one yet. But I've been trying to get my head around the process. I know that these construction jobs, and they live on the extras, and we all know that. But we have to have somebody who knows what it is that they're talking about, with all due respect. You know, until you've been on a crane or whatever, on a machine, you know when they're hosing you, when you're not getting the straight bill goods, or if there's another way, another set of eyes. I really have a difficulty with that not being stated, that person that we're going to take on, and I believe, it's be this quarter, I think, that person has to be the first line of defense for the municipality, for the information that, you know, staff, yourself, the committee are going to have. Your thoughts, or?
If I'm understanding correctly, you're looking for me to confirm that the project team will be reviewing all this content. So it's not just staff, it would be, you know, the construction manager team. We have our project manager here, who I will introduce in a moment as well, and as well as our design and architects. So we'll have quite a few set of eyes looking at these things for various levels of expertise. Is that what you're seeking? Maybe not.
With all due respect to the people behind you, a construction person, I have a lot more faith, I'm convinced that they can have a different set of eyes than, you know, project manager or the designer. These are guys that, you know, this is the person who knows what it is that they're talking about, what they're seeing, and they know how you can be, you know, just maybe not have to do something and end up paying for it. You need that person first. That has to be that first decision point and the first set of eyes onto this situation, because he's going to be a very busy person trying to keep up with all the extras claimed. So.
If I may, Mayor, I was going to introduce him in a moment, but I'll maybe introduce him now. Jeff Christie is our project manager through Collier's People Leaders. I'm saying that, project leaders, sorry. And I think he works in this field certainly more than I do, so if I can, I'll maybe just let him speak to what the intentions are and see if that comforts you.
Thank you, Sarah. And through you, Mr. Mayor. The process that we would follow with this and with construction management, and I first wanted to take the opportunity maybe to explain why we selected the current delivery methodology. You have a renovation project. You're not doing a greenfield building. So one of the things that we did with the workshop with the stakeholders from the town was to actually review which delivery methodology is best suited to the type of project that you're doing. We find that when you get into these types of projects, construction management affords more flexibility in both in terms of how quickly you can deliver the projects, so it helps us to accelerate because we can actually start some of the construction before we've actually completed the entirety of the design package. So it's kind of a phased approach. And then secondly, it also affords you the ability to engage that construction manager in terms of pre-construction services to do things like constructability reviews. So some of the things that you're talking about are actually what's going to work in this particular application, where, you know, our architect partners benefit from having somebody with that constructability mindset actually review things and say, this is the practical way of building this. So once we select a construction manager, and I want to make sure that in terms of the process and the delegated authority that we're seeking, that there's an understanding of how the process would work. So you're absolutely right. The construction manager is the first set of eyes that would look at something to say, does this make sense in the context? Is the cost appropriate? Is it consistent with current market conditions? I provide that second set of eyes, and Adam and his team, which is comprised not only of our architect, but also the supporting specialist engineers, so whether it's mechanical, electrical, civil, all those engineering specialist subconsultants would have eyes on that to make sure that the costs that are being presented to the town for approval are actually fair and appropriate. So there are multiple sets of eyes on this before it actually goes through to an approval, if you will, to authorize us to go ahead. There are a couple of things about that process that I want to be clear on. We establish at the outset what the expected value for the construction is going to be. So if you were to take our overall budget and break it down, the actual amount for the hard construction is actually $21.5 million. That would go into, basically go into the construction manager's contract. So again, part of what Sarah is asking for is we have to make approvals within that threshold. So we're never approving anything that goes beyond that approved budget threshold. It's once the construction manager is engaged, their portion might only be 5% of the actual expected overall value of the contract, but each of the trade tenders that are going to be let for structural, for earthworks, for any of those packages, even, for example, an early works package to do the parking lot, those things are going to require approval, and we're going to have to be able to execute with speed. The construction market, as it stands today, is very volatile. If you sit on it and we wait to come back to council for approval, a month goes by and the contractor's price is no longer valid because they might not hold it for more than 30 days. So part of the reason that we're asking for this delegated authority is to make sure that we can execute with speed, to take advantage of the current market conditions, and also to take advantage of the schedule benefits of going with the construction management delivery.
Councillor Frake.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I have a fear here that as council and as committees, we're going to start micromanaging this project. And yes, we're far behind already on this project. We should have started a long time ago. And Queen's Park is not happy about that already. And I think that if we have to stop, how much is going to be spent on this project? $32 million? So are we going to like approve every $100,000 limit all the way through the whole project? It's like, how many is that, 320 approvals? We're trying to get everybody together to approve it. I think we're just going to hold the project up. And I agree, we have a project manager. We have a director that's watching the numbers. So I just fear, and I'll go along with council, but I fear that we start to micromanage this project, it's going to start getting delayed. And if it gets delayed, then we are the ones that are going to suffer for this. And you're right. The market is going to dictate what happens at the end of the day anyways. And we do have our challenges there, or you will, or we will. So I would have a concern about that. So, and I don't want to see this thing held up any longer. I want to see it move ahead smoothly and efficiently and not go over what we've already approved, and that's $32 million, I think. So we have to be very careful here. So that's my concern, and I don't know how the rest of council feels, but that's mine. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Sharwa.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. And to one of you that can answer this, can you just clarify, like, is this for over $100,000? Like, these are all over the budget? No.
No, it's... Good. Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, this would be for the entirety. The way the current bylaw is written, as I understand it, is that it's effectively for cumulative, as Sarah had mentioned, for anything that's an amendment to the contract. So as I mentioned, because the construction manager's contract, the initial commitment that the town is making is only for the construction manager's fee, because part of construction management delivery is we're only committing to the construction manager's fee initially, and then as we develop the design, we would tender excavation and foundations, and then we would tender, the structural steel, et cetera. So those contracts could be in excess of $1 million, as an example. We would, of course, provide a council update to say, here's how we're progressing. We have an independent cost consultant's estimate. We have the construction manager's pre-tender estimate that we would be comparing against and saying, okay, structural steel was originally supposed to be $2 million. We came in at 1.8. We would like to have the authority to be able to say it's 1.8, it's within the approved budget. Can we proceed with this without having to come back? And I think the concern about delays is actually quite valid, is that our biggest concern is that if each time we have one of these circumstances come up, that we're going to have to come back for a subsequent approval. And under this current delivery methodology, that would be a major concern in terms of the potential delays or risk of delay that we might be confronted with. So.
Thank you for that clarification. That makes me feel better. I was thinking these were above and beyond what was in the budget. So, okay, thank you.
Councillor DeVoley.
Mayor Jordan, I guess just a question, I guess directed to Sarah Sweeney. In your report as well, and I am kind of deviating a bit from the topic at hand, but it's all connected to reporting and making sure that we're on budget and so on. And in your report here, it says staff will be reporting project updates to a core staff project team and also to council. But with our standing committee system, we're hoping that these committees will get into these things in a little more depth. And of course, we've heard from the chair of the committee saying, well, she'd like to be more involved as well. I think I was envisioning that as these projects went along, that it would be the standing committee that our departments would be reporting to. And therefore, I was envisioning that even on this project, it would be, a monthly report going to the standing committee. And then, of course, a brief summary then comes to council. So I just wanted to clarify if that's what you were thinking, so that when we said and also to council, did we mean strictly like bypassing the standing committee and going straight to council, or were you envisioning going to standing committee and then to council?
Through the mayor, and please tell me if I'm wrong, clerk's team, but that's my error. I'm sorry. I think it's habit of saying council, and ultimately, I guess council gets it, but through community services. Believe the intention is monthly updates, the sort of, regular progress updates would go through community services. Anything of a larger scale, if there was a larger decision to be made, potentially would go to council, but for the most part, it would go through community services. So my apologies, I guess I didn't specify the step to council, but the intention is community services.
Thank you for clarifying that. I'm hoping that by clarifying that, though, that it also helps the chair of the committee, because then, she and the committee will be getting monthly reports from you, and that should also help keep council members in the know as to what's going on, right?
Councillor Howe.
Just if I can, Colliers, are you going to have somebody on site for the duration of the job?
We will definitely have, in both ourselves and obviously McCallum Sather as well. Part of our role as project manager and certainly as the architect, we would be having people visiting the site on a regular basis.
So you're not on site, but close at hand?
Not on site full-time, no. Okay. But yeah, having somebody with, at minimum, like weekly site visits.
Yeah. And if I can, in response to Councillor Frick, don't want any part of the micromanaging, but certainly want to understand how it's going to be managed, okay? And you've kind of pieced it together. Director Sweeney, you were able to sort out a few things for me as well, and if we would have had that, I probably would have been happy. Thank you.
All right, Seeing no further questions, moved by Councillor Sharwa, second by Councillor DeFlavio. Resolved that report DCS 23-15, delegation of authority for the Peach King Center expansion project be received for information, and the council approve the delegation authority as contained therein. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we need a mover and seconder for report DCS 2314. Councillor Sharwa. Seconder, Councillor Howe. Sarah?
Good evening again. So you met Jeff Christie from Collier's team, and we sort of mentioned Adam, but I'll more formally introduce him. Adam McCaugan, did I say that right? McCaugan, thank you. I'm trying to say the name right, is our direct contact through McCallum Sather, who is our design and architect team. So we have all four of us here today, and we also have Angela Stefani from our finance team as well to support the conversation. Ange has been in all of our conversations, continuously helping us, and thank you very much for that, Ange. We say that, so she'll keep doing it. So the last time we were before you, we were providing a cost update. There was a direct update of the original plan that was prepared in 2019, and we thank you for that support. This is going to be a really fantastic community facility and a really unique project for our staff team and also for you as council as well that will leave a lot of lasting impressions. Since that time, our project team has been diving into the design process. So this report before you this evening addresses a few areas of the Peach King Center expansion report that have come up with design work process to date. They are reflections of current and future anticipated community demands and also of emerging environmental considerations that we believe are worthy of some further consideration. There's been some really great work done in this project as well to maximize the parking opportunities and also envision this site as a community campus, which will be touched on this evening. Staff recognize that these are very significant project components to consider, and we would not bring them forward to you for consideration if we didn't think that they were worthy of consideration at this time. These project considerations will have impacts on operations, functionality, and sustainability, both now and in the future. The team has worked really hard together to pull this off pretty quickly while also trying to maintain the project timeline that we have, and I just want to thank all of them for all of the work that they've done. I'm going to turn it over to Trevor now. He'll deliver the presentation, but we're all here to support questions that you have.
Thank you, Sarah, and good evening, members of council. So as Sarah mentioned, we were here in February with an update on the revised project budget. Since then, we have onboarded our prime design consultant, McCallum Sather. We've completed the draft stage 1 archaeological assessment. And in May, we received an updated functional program and site plan and took care of our planning pre-consultation. So those are some of the major updates that we've done since we last saw you. So today's presentation, just going to do a bit of an update on the project design, where things are at in its current stage, and the costing, and then consideration of an expanded gym design option, some green building initiative options, or an option, sorry, the financial impact and funding elements, and next steps for the project. So the interior elements in the current plan, we talked quite a bit about this at the last meeting, but full-size gymnasium, which is FIBA-sized, indoor walking track, fitness center, youth center, updated lobbies and common areas, a large multipurpose room, administration areas, a media multipurpose room, which is new, and a west pad change room improvements. And some of the changes that we looked at making were removing the early on center. So that's not removing the square footage of the early on center, that was actually moved into the medium multipurpose room. And really what that's about is, since 2019, and I'll go on a little bit about the growth and the needs that we have in the community right now, but dedicating a single space to one user all the time just isn't really feasible in the current needs of the community. So by moving to a medium multi-purpose room, we're able to serve different community needs at different times. So we're going to be working with early on to keep them in their current home at the Grimsby Beach Hall. We just think it makes more sense based on the current community need. The rooftop patio is another item that's been removed. I wouldn't say removed, but reimagined. So we really have made some big adjustments on the exterior site of the Peach King Center, which I'll share on the next slide. So I think it was our very first meeting with McCallum Sather, our architects, they kind of said, you can't just look at the building. You have to look at the site. Obviously at the Peach King Center, we share a site with Town Hall. There's a lot of parking, there's the outdoor rink, there's the soccer fields. And over time, there's been a lot of changes to this site. You've had the community center built, East Pad expansion, Town Hall expansion, outdoor rink, parks building that was built. And during that time, I don't feel that we're really looking holistically at the site. What's the impact on parking? What's the impact on all these different elements when you add them? So McCallum Sather kind of said, we need to treat this whole site as a campus and talk about how people move through the site, not just in vehicles, but when they're walking or cycling. And just how is everybody who's using the site, not just the Peach King Center, not just Town Hall, benefiting, enjoying the space. And right away, we were super on board with that approach. So I'm going to share, I'm going to show an updated site plan. And really it's about, transforming the whole site, creating attractive pedestrian connections, benefiting from the outdoor green space, hosting events, programs, not just inside, but also outside. So this is an update of the site design concept. So you can see some pretty major changes, particularly in the parking areas between Town Hall and the Peach King Center. And obviously, very visually, you can see the soccer fields have been converted to a parking lot. So those fields have been declared surplus. We have been in consultation with our local soccer association, so they won't be too surprised to hear this. And really, what this is about is ensuring we have enough parking to support the amenities that are going on inside the building and outside the building, but also making sure that we've got nice, attractive green spaces. You can see the strong outdoor connectivity between Town Hall and the Peach King Center, and walking past that start at Livingston, they connect to Merritt, all the way across to Tammy Court, and then back out to Livingston. So just really a walkable space that's safe. Right now, it feels like you have to cross way too much parking lot to access the amenities that we have at the Peach King Center currently. So this kind of concludes the update on the current program. So we had our independent cost consultant review this site plan and review the components. We remain on budget, so the amount that was approved at the last council meeting is in line with current costing estimates. But now I'm just going to hop into a couple of additional options. As Sarah mentioned, when we came to council in February, it was really about saying, hey, we've got new information. In 2019, this was costed. The world has changed significantly. We've got information about the current program and how much it costs. We want to share that with you. So that was February. Now, having onboarded our design consultants and working through the numbers, we thought, hey, here's a few really great other options that council consider, and that's what I'll share with you now. So the first option would be to expand the gymnasium. So I'm going to throw around the word double gym, and I don't mean doubling the gym in terms of square footage. What we're really actually talking about is about a 33% increase in size. And that's moving from a single gym FIBA size, which is a national standard, you could host like an Olympic level competition, to a double high school gym sizing, which is actually a little bit more in line with the anticipated needs of the space. So FIBA has very large runouts. So if you're going to go and do a dunk or a layup or whatever, they need a lot of space. For the type of community user that we're anticipating, that we're in consultation with, a high school gym kind of fits that bill. Now, if you were to go double gym, you could still do a big FIBA gym within that footprint, just not when it's in half. So if you go to double high school gym, we'll have a partition that runs between the two, and you could actually run consecutive basketball games. You could do a basketball game and a different type of fitness program on the other side. So by going to a double gym, you're not doubling the size, but you could be doubling the programmable space, because you're really building two separate areas that can be programmed independently. And the kind of rationale for that, since 2019, we've seen huge demand in town, increase in demand in town programs. Our camp programs, our fitness programs, community users, our basketball association, pickleball, there's sports we're not even talking to right now, volleyball, badminton, that we know exists, and a lot of them using the high school currently. We know that those needs are growing. We know our community is growing. This is an option that can expand an amenity. It can fit in the existing footprint of the site. We're fairly limited in what space we have, but we do believe we can fit that additional area and account for the additional parking. And you also get the added benefit of additional track space. So the track would be a little bit bigger on the above the gym. So that is the expanded gym option. Additionally, enhanced green initiatives, and this is specifically about net zero. So this should be front of mind because the Niagara region just announced, I think 2 weeks ago, their intention to match Canada's goal of net zero emissions in Canada by 2050. So in 2019, this kind of wasn't even on anyone's tongue, and now it's kind of everywhere. So in February, there was a grant program that staff did apply for, and we did some analysis, and the cost to convert the Peach King Center, so the existing building and all the new elements, was going to be over $25 million to go net zero. I'm not here tonight to ask for $25 million to go net zero. But in reviewing that, and we're still waiting on the outcome of the grant, which we applied for, which is called Green and Inclusive Community Buildings. But kind of through that exercise and through that conversation, we're recommending that council consider some select items so that regardless of that grant outcome, we're taking some small steps towards net zero. So again, not going to be completely net zero, not even what they would call net zero ready, but kind of taking some select initiatives so that if there was going to be a requirement where the government says, hey, you have to be net zero by this date, or if council decides, or whatever the outcome is, you're not saying, hey, we just built this brand new facility 5 years ago or 3 years ago. Why didn't we put some of the money in or some of the hardest items to change at the time? So some of those elements could be structural enhancements to support future solar panels on top of the building, enhanced underslab and perimeter insulation, triple glazed windows, and enhanced building insulation. And really this is small steps you can take so that let's say we do want to meet a net zero requirement or we're required to, you're not pulling insulation out of walls and rebracing the roof, 5 years down the road because there's a new requirement. These are some small steps we can take that can enable us to have an easier future transition to net zero. So this proactive planning too could enable even future funding. So let's say we don't get GICB, showing that we've made a step in the right direction. Now you're not funding every single element that is required for net zero. You've already kind of taken that first few steps. And one of the added benefits as well is reduced operating costs prior to net zero transition. So you're going to get a more efficient building. So once you go net zero, the operating costs do kind of shift, and there's not always a benefit in operating costs once you're net zero. But in the meantime, when you have a more efficient building and you're using gas power, we are going to save some money on operating. So what are the financial impacts? So we prepared 4 options. Option A would be choose both additional options, expanded gym and green initiatives. Option B, just expanded gym. Option C, just green initiatives, and option D would be the approved program. So that's what's currently approved by council in February. So incremental cost, $5.5 million for option A, 3.1 for option B, option C 2.6, and obviously no additional cost for option D. In terms of the funding strategy, the town reserve contribution and the SPIF, which is the provincial funding strategic priorities infrastructure fund dollars, are unchanged. So it's a mix of development charges and long-term debt, which would make up the increase in cost. In terms of the impact on the levy, if you recall in February, the strategy for the debt was to phase in the required dollars on the levy over 3 years. So in 2023, that first portion of the debt needed to fund the already approved program was included in the 2023 budget. So there's 2 years remaining on that phasing. So if you, on the option D approved program, it's an estimated 0.79% impact on the levy in 2024, an estimated 0.77% in 2025. Now for all the other options, you need to add that additional debt funding that's required. So you can see the options there. So 1.43, 1.41 for option A, 1.1, 1.08 for option B, and 1.05, 1.02 for option C. In terms of next steps, we will be back. I believe in terms of, as Sarah did allude to, what would come to committee and what would come to council. Schematic design, we can discuss, but that'll be a big, large milestone. So that will be coming towards the end of summer 2023, as will the award of our construction manager. We'll also be returning to, we're providing an update about a capital campaign proposal. That's, how can we fundraise to offset some of these costs? we do want council to know what the full cost and the full levy impact of these options of the project are, but there are other opportunities that we can do to raise money, and a capital campaign is one of them. And we will be coming back with some proposal, with some ideas about how we can use that to offset some of the costs of this project. So that's it for my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions, as is the team here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. So my first question is in regards to parking. How many more parking spaces will we see from this?
I have that ready for you. One sec. So currently at the Peach King Center site, we have 309 parking spots. On the single gym option, we would have 456, which would be a net gain of 147. On the double gym option, 428, which would be a net gain of 119. And we do have some additional dollars in that budgeted amount for additional parking reconfiguration. And really, I don't want to get too focused on the exact parking number. What we've done as a team here is say, is it feasible to do both of these options in the site? We've been working with, not just our team, but with the architects and project management firm and other town staff. And we also will be looking to a third party to validate that there's enough parking to support the operations on site. But I think what I could say today is that the Peach King Center site, Town Hall site as a whole, has enough space to provide the required parking that we need. So if council were to proceed with the double gym option, we would come back and say, we've only done so much. We didn't want to go too far down the line planning on a double gym when council hasn't provided their guidance or funding. So if you were to approve a double gym, we'd go back to the architects and say, okay, what can we do with the site to support the additional parking that we need if council makes that decision?
So sorry, what were the numbers again? Single was what and double?
456 for the single, 428 for the double.
Okay, so I just want to point this out because I love the fact that, there's mention about people walking, but let's be realistic. We're here for hockey mostly, and I don't know any hockey players that walk to the arena with all their equipment, right? So that's never going to happen. So we need to make sure that we maximize the parking for sure. I'm torn on this, honestly, because I came in today thinking I would be for this expansion. I'm not sold on it. I think it's $5 million, and I don't really see a whole lot from it. So I'm hoping I can get feedback from everybody else because I don't know where I'm going with this.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you, I just have a few questions. First comment, I love the town square idea between the buildings. I just think it unifies the site. Right now, what we have is a parking lot that divides the site, so I think that whoever's idea that was, it was a great solution to creating that campus idea that you talked about, so kudos for that. My questions are related to the dimensions of the new gyms. So you talked about double gyms now, and you referred to high school. Are you talking about each of those gyms would be like a high school size court? Or are you talking about the whole thing would be like a high school gym where it's split in half and you get two small gyms? Because that's important. The reason why I'm asking is, so for example, if it's two high school sized gyms, you can have a volleyball on one side because there's a huge demand in Grimsby for volleyball courts. As you know, there's nothing available. And you could have a basketball practice on the other side or whatever, or you could have two separate full-size games going at the same time. If it's a high school gym as a whole that's divided in two, then you get, like the old-fashioned, you can have a gym class on this side and a gym class on that side, but they're both kind of useless gyms other than for like a little scrimmage or something like that. So that's why the dimensions are important to me. I don't know if we're getting too much into the weeds here, but that's an important question for me.
Through you, Mayor, I'll be brief. So originally, we were looking at a single FIBA. So you could divide that in two. You don't have two gyms when you divide the FIBA in two. So what this option explores is double high school. So it's two high school sized gyms that are divided by a partition. And there's even gyms out there, I believe Pelham is similar, and they are divided by four. So you can divide the partition in half, so you've got 2 high schools, and you can further subdivide those by an additional 2. So the intention with this plan is that you could host, if you're hosting a tournament, there could be 2 separate basketball games, or a basketball game and a volleyball game with independent seating on each side.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. That's an important clarification from a programming perspective and from what could be done there. Would there be any inclusion of seating of any kind in that design for visitors, for spectators?
Through you, Mayor, yes. So the benefit of having the walking track is you've got some space underneath. So the plan is that there would be retractable seating that serves each. So if it was a double gym option, you'd have seating on both sides. The single gym option, you would have seating just on serving the one.
Awesome. So I look at the design and I see that the parking, the soccer fields are becoming parking, which is understandable because you're making the building bigger and changing the dimensions, putting in the town plaza. Has there been any thought given to moving the berm to the west side? Because there are residents there who've had for a lifetime a park in their backyard, and they're going to go from having a park in their backyard to having a parking lot in their backyard, which is a significant change from a homeowner's perspective. So what consideration's been given to those homeowners and the buffer between their homes? On this side of the property, we have a berm for homeowners. Has there been any thought? And I know we have old trees and stuff that we don't want to touch, but we might want to consider building something on the west side, and I don't know how that would affect parking and how that would change your dimensions here, but I really think the consideration of the people who live on Roberts Road and whose homes back onto that parking is a serious consideration that needs to be taken into consideration, design concept. Again, if that's too detailed for this discussion, I apologize. I just, when I see the design, these are the things that come to mind for me.
Through the Mayor, Council, it's a great question. It's something we've actually been ruminating a little bit as well. We don't have a definitive answer. You're right, there are mature trees, so that is one factor, but it is something that we definitely want to take into consideration as to, is there a different even configuration, right, if you change that berm there. So I don't have an answer for you, but it is on our radar.
Thank you. And last one, Mayor, through you. Is the expansion, or, I know that development charges the rules are changing, and I know that there are limitations to what you can put on development charges, but the track is something that is, as a result of an aging community and a result of an expanding community, it's a demand that we didn't have 20 years ago, that we have as a result of new development and increased expectations because of new residents in the town of Grimsby. Is there any way to recoup any of this? Because my concern is always the levy, right, and taxes and the impact on taxes. Is there any way to recoup this money through development charges? Is there any avenue that way to kind of add it to development charges, or part of it to development charges, so that we're not putting it all on the levy? And are there any reserves that we can dip into to reduce the levy impact?
Through the Mayor, so Councillor, we are utilizing development charges towards this project. We did get it in the last development charge study, and we've been able to incrementally adjust it relative to the total project cost. And please, Ange, if I say something incorrect, feel free to jump in. 25%, right? And that was based upon, we worked with the consultant team in terms of what perspective is new and what is sort of repurposed, right? And that's kind of what it comes down to for development charges. So those numbers that you see, that's why they can change, is because it is a percentage of the total cost. And that is in the DC study in terms of what that percentage is.
So I would, Mayor, if we're talking about whether we're supporting it or not, I would support the double gym idea. And as far as the green initiative is concerned, I think having some foresight on this, and we know what happens with construction costs for municipalities. We know, we were both around when the first Peach King expansion happened, and prices don't go down, they go up. So if we can add these things that we know in the long term we'll need and will save us probably $10 million down the line by spending $2 million now, it might be a wise decision to do that now. So I would support both of those things. I think that it's a lot better solution than a single gym from a user's perspective and for being able to give access to everybody in all the groups that need it in the town of Grimsby, not just one or two groups. So I think it's a better solution for what the town needs. So thanks, Your Worship. That's my 2 cents.
Councillor Frake.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I tend to agree with Councillor DeFlavio. I have absolutely no problem with the designs. I mean, I think we've flushed it out. I think we beat that to death. And I think we need to move on from that, and we need to get started, because I keep saying I hear rumbling from Queen's Park. They're really upset with us that we haven't started this project, and I don't want to see something happen there that they're going to start pulling some of the money back. I don't think that'll happen, but I don't want to see it happen. But in terms of the numbers here, I look at just one question before I finish here. Option C has got green initiatives, option B does not, and then option A does have green initiatives. Did I read that right?
Yeah, through the mayor. So option A would be both of those two pieces. The B is just gym. C would be just the green initiatives, and then D would be if you remain the same.
Okay. Anyways, I think that we need to be seen and need to be doing as much of the net zero and green initiatives that we possibly can, because that's the way of the world. It's going to cost all the municipalities lots to get involved in these programs. And I'm sure there's some grants out there we can take advantage of as we go along, because more and more of these grants are coming out. So hopefully we keep an eye on that and we grab them as they come along. But I do believe that we need to be looking at the future and not at the now. I think what we're building, if we go with with option D, for example, I think we're looking at the now. I think if we go with the option A, we're looking at the future. It is going to be, I think it was 1.23% on the levy over a period of 3 years. Is that correct? I think that's correct. That's not a hell of a lot for what we're getting here. I mean, we're expecting a huge influx of residents in this community over the next 5 to 7 years. And I think we need to go for this, because otherwise, as Councilor DeFlavio said, we're going to spend $2 million now or $10 million later, whatever, because we'll be trying to catch up with something we should have done now. So I'm going to suggest we put forward option A as the solution. Can I do that as a motion? Do we need to decide tonight? We need to move this along, right?
Through the mayor, we would certainly like.
I still think there's more speakers. So,
no, but we can. Yeah, I'm not saying. I'm just suggesting we do that. But anyways, yeah, that's my 2 cents. Right. And hopefully that's where we land. Thank you,
Councillor DeVoley.
Mayor Jordan, I do have a few concerns about all of this, and I think my concerns are not just unique to this project, but to everything that we do. And my first concern has to do with the fact that what I'm hearing from my fellow councillors, which concerns me though, is that we're voicing our future based upon each of our individual experiences, but not really based upon any data analysis. And so, as I shared with you earlier, Sarah, we know that we have an increase in the population coming to Grimsby, but what we don't have a firm handle on is what that population is going to look like during the time of this building. We don't know if we have all young families coming, single individuals coming, or whether we have couples coming who are all 65 years of age and over. And depending what that mix is, makes an enormous difference to the type of services that we offer. And so I hear everybody's concerns, but I really feel like it's based upon, guts, of what our gut says, who our friends are, what activities we're in, but I don't really feel like it's based upon any data analysis. And I realize that is very hard to do quickly, but I really am concerned that we are trying to build something without having a firm picture as to what those users are and what their needs are going to be. And I'll give you an example. Yes, pickleball is really popular right now, especially in my age group. And I'll say I'm the tail end of the baby boomers, but I guarantee that 10 and 15 years down the road, when that huge flux of baby boomers is now no longer participating in that so much, it's going to change the type of services that we're offering. And so I think that analysis gives us enormous information that we currently don't have. The second concern I have is that I have not seen anything yet from anybody as to what the impact is on our operating costs as we go into this project going forward. And yes, do I love a green initiative? Absolutely. But quite honestly, as I asked you, we don't even know what the operating costs of the utilities are going to be theoretically in the new building, let alone what those savings might be if we change the configuration and make it more green, to use that as an example. So that's my second concern as to why I feel like we are missing data or information at the moment. My third concern has to do with the fact that late in 2024, we're going to be taking on, I'll say $9.3 million, and I realize we have some in reserves already, so we're probably talking $8 million and change for our contribution to the hospital. We were initially talking about $7 million here. Now we're conceivably looking at $11 million, again in 2025. I think, that was the time period envisioned to taking on that debt. And we're still carrying our fire expansion debt until at least the end of 2027. And so that concerns me because it's not just a report here that says, oh, it's only going to add 1% to the levy. I think we need to look at it in relation to all the other projects that we have also approved, where, it's another 1.5% for the hospital. It's another, so much for the next project and so on. And so I really would like to have a better handle on what these increases conceivably would be in total when we look at all the projects together and not just approving each one as a one-off. And then just my last two quick comments. One, we have the West Niagara Secondary School, which is just being finished. And I'm really not familiar with their whole design and what's going into that building. It's my hope that somewhere in there that their gym capabilities will be able to meet some of the needs of our community as well, and that we're not shouldering the entire demand within our facility here that we're thinking of. And my last comment is, I realize we need more parking, but and I truly, when we're talking green, I realize we're talking about a small portion that would be some green between Town Hall and the Peach King Center. So just as an aside to all of this, that old song, take paradise and turn it into a parking lot. I would really hate to see all the land around us, turned into asphalt and concrete, right? If there's some way to be green in that concept as well, I really think we should be looking at that too. And I will end my comments there. Thank you.
Councillor Howe.
Through you, Mayor. Alex, if I could. You mentioned the rooftop patio, and then I thought you said change the improvements, or what are we doing with the rooftop patio?
Through you, Mayor Jordan. So when we proposed the rooftop patio, it was really about having kind of an outdoor amenity space as part of the project. But as we work through the design with the design team, when you do that, within a building, you have to firstly access the building to get there. You can only access it when we're open. In the wintertime, might have limited abilities to be used. So really felt that the benefits of that were better used in the main exterior space, which is the improved site plan.
Alex, if I can, through you, Mayor. Alex, if I can, I think what you're saying, I'm hoping what you're saying is it's going to be a roof.
Through you, Mayor, yes, it will be a roof, and the benefits of that item will be reimagined outdoors for everyone.
Okay. Couple of other things. Councilor DeFlavio commented on the campus approach. What would that cost? Where would that enter into pricing for us? Any idea? And if you don't know, please say, because let me take this forward. I did ask the acting CIO today why this was coming here to council and not to the Community Services Standing Committee. In my understanding, because it was approved in the previous council, but I don't think there's any reason why it could not go back or go to Community Services to be looked at, reviewed, and tried to understand, because you're hitting with this, a bunch of stuff. We got one shot at making it whatever it's going to be, but we need more information. I mean, I went up to Smithville, nice little gym, walked around. It's a whole bunch of ideas, and until someone can tell me what's going to be in them and how we're going to deal with it, then I can't support it, because I don't know what this $6 million is going to accomplish until I can have my hands on it. So, thank you.
Through you, Mayor, the concept with the site plan, that is included in the approved total project budget. There was some cost increases. Obviously, the scope of that is a little bit higher than what you saw last time, but we did have some savings in escalation costs, market volatility, and as we approach construction closer, we have seen our independent cost consultant revise the amount of escalation that they're carrying. So there was some offset there. So all of that site area, the parking lots, that is within the approved project budget. That was in February. As for the committees versus council, the reason we're here tonight is because there is a large budget ask on the table with the two additional options. Regular project updates will go to the Community Services Committee. And I think just to ease your mind, we're here tonight relatively early in the design process because we don't want to go too far down the path without council having provided their guidance. We don't want to start designing, a tighter site concept with a double gym if it's not funded, if it's not approved by council. So once we get the direction tonight, whatever that is from council, when we come back in August, you're going to see a lot more a refinement, because we're going to be really putting our heads down after this meeting, having a full budget, having a full idea of what the next steps are forward. So I can assure you at the next update, you'll start to see things come together a little bit closer.
Councilor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I'll keep it brief. So the $5.6 million that is in the option A, I think it is, that's based on what we know for sure. That's an accurate number. It's because, in the past, we've seen numbers that increase down the line. That's based on everything we know, based on consultants' recommendations. That's the number?
Through you, Mayor Jordan. So those were costed with the same methodology of the other costing we've brought, which is validated by our independent cost consultant. So that includes construction costs plus soft costs. So, design and permitting and all of that is included. So it's the same strategy. I'm not just it's not Trevor picking out $5 million. It was costed the same way as the rest of the project.
Okay. Yep. No, I didn't think you were just picking. I just meant, I meant it.
No, it's not.
There were people other than you involved.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Well, it's not a guesstimate.
It's not at all. No, it's costed the same way as the rest of the project.
The other thing I wanted to mention, Your Worship, through you, is that people talk about this new gym at West Niagara Secondary School. I do want to point to the fact that based on what we know right now, we're losing two gyms and getting one, right? And we're losing one in the town of Grimsby at GSS and getting none, because West Niagara Secondary School is not in Grimsby. It's not centrally located in Grimsby. It's not convenient for people to walk to in Grimsby. It is not a Grimsby gym, okay? That West Niagara Secondary School was built in Beamsville. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not a Grimsby gym. So it's going to be a gym and a half from what I've heard. And we're losing Grimsby Secondary School and BDSS to get one. So it's a net -1 on that when you look at the new build. So this is an important part. And again, it's not about, I've seen the facility in Smithville, and I know kids that work at the desk there, and that facility is booked all the time. In fact, if you wanted to go there and book it for yourself for an event, it's almost impossible because most of the spaces are filled by different organizations, whether it's karate or yoga or all these different groups that use it. There's definitely a need within the town of Grimsby for the gyms. And we've talked about in the past, when we talked about this, doing it right. You know, some of the concerns that people had previously in this discussion was, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. And I still don't think this is perfect, but this is a lot closer to doing it right than we were before. So from my perspective, at a cost of $5.69 million or $5.7 million, it's a heck of a lot closer to doing it right than I think was 12 million was the discussion before. You know, I just want to get it done, and I want to get it done as soon as possible. I know that I'm never going to get to use it. My kids are never going to get to use it, but we talk about all the time planting a tree that you're never going to enjoy the shade of, right? And this is one of those situations where our kids might not use it, but the kids forever going on will use it, and elderly people during the day, and all the residents of Grimsby. There will be programming. I know that Sarah and her staff will create programming for people there all day, every day, and it's going to be used all the time. So I'm hoping that we're going to make a decision as a council tonight, the right decision to approve this, and let's get it moving, and let's start building.
Any further questions?
I have one, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Vardy.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I support option A. I think the demand is going to be there. You know, we need to think about what's coming. By the time this is built, we'll probably need more space. So I think we should go with the larger option. The beauty of it is, you know, as Councillor DeVoli said, you know, pickleball's in demand now. Who knows what it's going to be down the road? Well, for sure, it's going to be something down the road. And in the time being, I'm sure we could fill it with pickleball night and day. So I like the idea of the expanded gym. And I think preparing ourselves for green initiatives is the right way to go. They're going to be imposed on us at some point. Let's get into a state of readiness. And I think what we should try to do is see if we can't search out some grants to help defer some of this cost. But I just wanted to add my 2 cents. I think that having a space that's so flexible that you could do so many things in it, I think is the way to go. So the expanded gym with the preparation for green is where my vote is going. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vardy. I just want to make a couple comments. Yes, I was there when we twinned the Peach King back a long time ago. But the council of the day decided to cut costs, and I think we paid for that cutting of costs ever since. The facility was behind as soon as it was built. And I think that option A is the only way to look forward. Let's face it, we know that the province is pushing expansion on us. We know that the 2051 growth policy has us at 37,000. So, and we also know that governments are moving with green initiatives. We know all these things. And we need we have a grant that's over 16 million right now. We can leverage that grant by building now and building an enhanced facility now that we certainly can be proud of for a generation to come, and we won't look at it like we cut costs now and we're going to pay for it for a long time. So quite honestly, I feel that that's where I stand, and Councillor Frick has put forward option A. So we have it here. I thought speaking was closed, but Councillor Sharwa, I'll allow you to speak a second time.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I just wanted to thank you for that comment, because that actually helped me in my decision making, because I don't want to cut costs. recreation is super important to me, obviously, and I just want a commitment from the town if I do vote for this, because I have a feeling I might be the the one that's the tiebreaker here, that we're actually going to fully maximize this use. I do not want to see this sitting there and people saying, why did we put this money into this when it's not actually being used? So I just want to make sure that it's really being used and the community's getting benefit, and it's you know, they're going to see it on a daily basis why we've invested in this. Can you make that commitment?
I think I can say confidently behind our team, we're very committed to that same thing. We want to see it filled with people in the morning, in the evening, on the weekend. And I think this design really gives us that potential, that flexible space that we're building just creates so many opportunities, the ones we know today and the ones we don't know yet. So definitely we're in, and I do think this is a bit of when we build it, we're going to realize more opportunities. You know, we're held back a little bit right now by some of the space that we have in terms of what we can do. So you definitely have our commitment to do whatever we can to keep that place filled with every age, every ability, and every interest we can.
So, yeah, we have option A as our preferred resolution here. So I have a mover as Councillor Charwa, seconder as Councillor Howe. So I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Charwa, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that report DC 23-14 Peach King Center Expansion and Renovation Project update and additional options dated June 5th, 2023 be received for information, and that the project be expanded to include an expanded gym and enhanced green initiatives at an additional cost of $5.659,780 and a revised total project cost of $36,728,155. So if you could vote on your e-scribe, we can move forward. Thank you. Councillor Vardy?
I vote in favor of option A.
Thank you.
I don't think anybody has it.
No, we don't have it.
It's not coming up on ours. You have it? Oh, okay.
I didn't.
Sorry. I did, yeah.
Yeah, mine didn't come either. Oh, there it is. It is now.
All right.
Yeah, okay, got it. Sorry about that. Apologies.
All right, so that is carried. Thank you, everyone. All right, now we move to, thank you, Trevor, thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Colliers. Have a good evening. Now we move to DPW 23-13, 2023 capital water main replacement. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor DeFlavio. All right, good evening, Marvin. We have a mover and seconder to get it on the floor, so you can go ahead now. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Yeah, I thought I would just give a quick background to the report just to set the scene. So the Governor Dorchester's water main replacement project It's part of the town's initiative to replace aging cast iron water main throughout the town. So this water main to be replaced, it's approximately 1 kilometer of water main, 6 to 8 inches in diameter, and it's approximately 60 years old. And just as a kind of a comparison, the service life for cast iron water main is typically about 50 years old, so it's reached and surpassed its service life, and that's why it's been selected for replacement. So the budget for this project was prepared back in 2019. And it was inflated moving forward with estimated inflation costs for 2023. As you know, the inflation that was predicted back in 2019 and 2020 is not what we've seen. So we're anticipating from, I guess, other recent construction projects that have taken place in the region that we're expecting prices to come in probably in the 25 to 30% increase inflation range from what we've been using for budgeting. So that's the one concern. The other issue is as part of the design process for this project, typically what's done is a geotechnical investigation is completed. So what that is they essentially drill holes in the alignment of where the future water main is going to be constructed. Just to see what the makeup of the soils are for condition and whether it's contaminated or not. So the unfortunate thing is what we found is the entire alignment for the water main or the future water main is shale or rock. And what that really means is the excavation is going to be significantly harder, slower, and more expensive. So that's kind of the second thing that goes along with the COVID pricing, increase in pricing. The shale is expected to increase the number of working days, approximately 20. Along with that is contract administration and geotechnical costs. So we're expecting the shale costs to increase the project approximately $500,000. And the COVID, I'll say the COVID pricing to apportion that to be about 30% increase, so about $345,000. And then on top of that, before you, we've actually thrown in the table a $100,000 item for what we're calling contingency. Is it just essentially a for unforeseen during construction, and just for your reference, typically the number that's used for this type of project is approximately 20%. So we're suggesting something a little less, something more like 10%. So basically, when you put all that together, we're anticipating the project to come in approximately $945,000 over budget. The original budget that was approved by council was approximately 1.3. We're bringing before you a request to approve a budget up to 2.3 million. And just some quick background, the project is tendered, and the reason we've done that is the project's expected to take 5 or 6 months to complete, and we really want to make sure we can get all the restoration work done before the winter. So what we decided to do was to tender the project. It actually closes by the end of this week. We'll have actual numbers by then, but we wanted to get the request for increase in budget before you to get that acknowledgement and approval, so that when the project does close, we can efficiently move forward with the project, get it ordered to the contractor and get shovels in the ground, and ultimately restoration before winter. So that's a quick background. Happy to answer any questions and try to provide some more clarification if needed.
Thank you for your presentation, Martin. Questions from council? Councillor Howe.
Through you, Mayor. That shale that you're into, is there going to be more shale like before and at the back end or until, and not the specific job, but in future, you're going to keep running into that shale for a while? I don't think it extends as far as, for instance, down my way, but I know what shale is like to get into.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a great question. And I would say we would probably first assume that there will be shale now that we found it, but we'll certainly do some, I'll say some pre-geotechnical work to confirm that so that for future projects, we'll be prepared and in terms of the limits of the shale. So we were quite surprised to see the extent on this project that it essentially follows the entire alignment of the proposed water main.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Martin. So, other than the shale, what changed from the initial budgeting to now? So the shale accounts for that entire almost $1 million difference? Because, I mean, if the budgeting occurred in 2022, or, you know, recently, because it's on this year's budget, we were aware that prices have changed you know, over the last few years, and that there's been an increase. So what accounts for that huge discrepancy? It's almost double, right? So what else accounts for that huge discrepancy in the price?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we're estimating about $500,000 of the increase is directly attributable to shale. So that would include the loss of production, for example. So typically, a contractor might predict or prepare for installing 100 meters of water main a day, for example. With shale, I'm going to suggest it's probably close to half of that. So, as you know, contractor makes money based on time. So that's going to be a significant increase. The other part of it is typically we can use the material that you dig out of the trench can be used as backfill once you're done putting the water main in. Because it's shale, it's very unlikely we'll be able to do that. So then we're going to have to import virgin granular material, which is, we're estimating close to $100,000 and $150,000 just for that alone. And then because it is rock, typically without rock, you can install sections of water main, if not all of it, and water services trenchlessly, so you can bore through the ground. With rock, you can appreciate that that's very difficult, if and almost impossible. So that's an increased cost because now you have all these trenches that you had hoped you wouldn't have, and now you have to restore all those. So when you package all that together, that we are attributing to about $500,000. And then the COVID pricing, I guess fortunately or unfortunately, we haven't actually completed a water main project in Grimsby for the last couple of years. We were, when the budget was put together, we did inflate it, but what we're being told, and I'm hoping we'll be wrong, that when the contract actually does, or tender closes, we'll be pleasantly surprised. But it's being suggested by our design consultant that we should expect a significant increase in pricing post-COVID from pre-COVID. So that attributes to, we're suggesting about $300,000 to $345,000. So those two together plus the contingency is how we get our almost $1 million.
Okay, thank you. Through you again, Your Worship. So, Martin, that's based on boring and kind of our best knowledge. So they dig, they think there might be shale. What if in the actual construction there's not? Would that reduce the cost, or is the cost no matter what?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, great question. We've done geotechnical investigation, and we've put boreholes in, but you make a great point. What happens in between those boreholes, we can't say for sure. We're assuming because every borehole showed shale that we probably will hit shale continuously. But if we don't, then absolutely we are able to adjust the installation or the construction method so that we can use the material for backfill. We can do boring. For example, a lot of the driveways that are, I'll say patterned concrete, some of the mature trees, we are really hoping that we can bore under them so that we don't have to either remove trees or cut driveways and restore them. If we find that it's not shale and we can do that, we're certainly going to do that, because that in the end will save money.
Okay, and
sorry, I was just going to mention before you is hopefully a worst case scenario.
now, from an engineering perspective, that's the only way to do it, right? It's not like, because, you know, obviously, we've dug through this before, 60 years ago when these were constructed, the holes were dug and there's a space there. It's because we have to create new spaces for a parallel line, I'm assuming, because we can't replace as it's being used. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, when we did discover that it was potentially shale throughout the new alignment, we looked at, I guess, remediation options. And that was one option that we did look at, is can we put the new main in the same alignment as the old main? And that is done, and it has been done in the past. The issue with that is what you have to do is you have to run essentially a temporary water service on the surface for the entire limit. So you'd be running a water main on the ground with water services to every house on the surface, so that you can decommission the old main and put the new main in the place of the old one. That can be done. It's very expensive, and there's a lot of typically challenges in doing that with weather and so on, and water quality. The other issue we found is the gas line is directly on top of the old water main. So in order to do that, we'd have to relocate the existing gas line, and that would be cost prohibitive.
Okay.
So we're stuck with a new alignment, unfortunately.
Thank you for that. These are all questions I would have asked in Public Works if this came through a Public Works, so I'm sorry for wasting people's time. The last question I had is, how much is left? Because, you know, over the years, we've been able to, I know that you haven't been able to do anything for the last couple of years, like you said, but in the past, we've had years where we were able to do, 1.6 kilometers or 1.8 kilometers because we got a grant, or we were able to, the bids came in less that year, and so we were able to put in more replacements. How much is left of the water main replacement going into the future? Are we coming into the home stretch?
Yeah, no, through you, Mr. Mayor, another great question. I'm going to, these are estimates, but I'm going to suggest or estimate we have approximately 32 kilometers of cast iron water main, and that we've replaced, I would say, approximately 25 kilometers. So we are in the home stretch. The downtown improvement project is probably our next big one, and we'll have a few more coming before you, but yeah, we're definitely over the hump, and we can see the finish line. I would say, I guess conservatively, we're hoping within the next 10 years that we can tackle the remaining cast iron water main.
Councillor DeVoley.
Mayor Jordan, I'm not sure who my question is to, so I will just ask it. I'm not sure if it's to Marvin or Brandon, but I think I really have three questions. So perhaps the first one is to Marvin. So if I understand correctly, we're not actually taking out the cast iron water main because there's a gas line over it. We're going to be digging beside it and putting in a new one, correct? So we're actually leave the old cast iron mains there. And if I have that, if my understanding is correct, what does that mean to that line as it disintegrates? What does it do to the environment when we leave it there forever?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's correct. The old water main will be essentially left in place. The new water main will have a completely new alignment. The old water main will, of course, I guess, disintegrate over time. In terms of I guess what it does to the like, will it cause contamination to the soil? I will suggest no. It's very, I mean, it's essentially just metal that will disintegrate over time. Yeah, so it's yeah. I don't see one for environmentally any concerns. I don't see any on that end. It's not a concern, and I don't believe from that perspective. And in terms of any settlements, it's 6 to 8 inch diameter, so you won't see over time if it does, pick up the void of that the soil just takes the place, and you won't even notice it. So.
Thank you. Yes, no, that answers my question. Thank you. My second question is, now that we know this about this particular capital project, are there any other water or sewer projects that we were envisioning doing in the next few years where we have contemplated or approved the budget for this year, or where we're contemplating the next few years where we need to rethink the costs going forward now that we know the implications of this project? I guess that's probably a question more for Brandon.
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to let Marvin take it, but that's okay. So yes, we've been talking as a team as well, just with having to do a bit of a market correction to our costing as we develop our budget. So certainly, again, keeping in mind this is a large portion of the cost is shale, and we do account for that in general terms, but not to this level of extent. So as we move forward, we will look at changing our inflation numbers in terms of the water main as we move forward. As Marvin said, we used previous budgets or previous numbers from 2019 and inflated them, and unfortunately didn't inflate them enough. So we will do that market correction as we move forward.
But are we envisioning any other projects, sewer or water, where we think we may encounter shale issues in the next few years, this year or the next few years?
Again, on the shale side, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, again, on the shale side, again, it's difficult to understand without doing the geotechnical investigation. I know Marvin and the team have discussed whether or not we can do, pre-design geotechnical investigations. That would be done ahead of the budget, but there may be an opportunity for that. Our normal process is by doing the engineering design, or as part of the engineering design, we review the geotech at that time. So there may be an opportunity for us to move that forward to get ahead of that, to ensure that our budgets are more accurate to reflect that. But again, I just think, to be honest, this is the first one that I'm aware of that has experienced shale to this level. So, I mean, we have run into it in the past in previous projects, but this one is pretty significant. So again, something we'll have to keep an eye on as we move forward.
Thank you. And my third question is, I realize that this puts us significantly over what we had envisioned for the budget. And the proposal is to take it from the reserve. When we had looked at the size of the reserve when we were approving the budget, we felt we were within sort of parameters of what should be there. I'm now concerned because we're going to be taking almost $1 million out of that reserve. And so I would like to suggest that one of the matters, I think, that I would like to, Public Works to work with our finance team on is, the adequacy of that reserve now for our water replacement projects going forward, because this is a big hit to it. $1 million, we're realistically talking, just under 20%. And so if I could ask you to put that on your list of things to look at, that would be greatly appreciated. That concludes my questions. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor DeFlavio. Resolved that report DPW 23-13, 2023 Capital Water Main Replacement, Governors Road and Dorchester Drive Project Update and Funding Approval dated June 5th, 2023 be received for information, and the Council approve a budget amendment of $945,000 for the 2023 Capital Water Main Rehabilitation Project, Governors Road and Dorchester Drive, to a total of $2.3 million to be funded from the Water Asset Rehabilitation and Renewal Reserve. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much, Brandon and Marvin. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, need a mover and seconder for report TC 2310. Councillor Frake. Seconder, Councillor DeVoldy. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor DeVoldy. Resolved that report TC 2310, high school bursaries dated June 5th, 2023 be received. The council approved two $500 bursaries to two students of the graduating class at Blessed Trinity Catholic Secondary School and West Niagara Secondary School. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we move to notice of motions. Councillor Sharwa.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. I'd like to ask for a vote for separate, for immediate consideration of my notice of motion.
All right, so we have Councillor Sharwa as a mover to suspend the rules. We need 2/3. We need a seconder first. Councillor DeVoldy. Moved by Councillor Sharwa, second by Councillor DeVoldy. Resolved that rules of procedure be temporarily suspended by an affirmative vote of 2/3 to discuss Councillor Sharwa's notice of motion. Should we vote on the e-scribe?
Can we? Yeah, yes.
Yeah, let's vote on the e-scribe.
Yeah, that's better. So I can count it out.
Councillor Vardy?
I'm in favor.
All right, so 2/3 was achieved, so now we can discuss the notice of motion. Why don't I read it out first, now that we can discuss it? Whereas the Town of Grimsby Bylaw 2041 allows for discharge of consumer fireworks between dusk and midnight on Victoria Day and Canada Day, or each of the 2 days immediately preceding or 7 days immediately following both Victoria Day and Canada Day, and whereas discharge of fireworks, while enjoyable for some, can cause distress to children, adults with PTSD, pets, and wildlife. Therefore, be it resolved that Bylaw 20-41 be amended to delimit the discharge of consumer fireworks between dusk and midnight on Victoria Day and Canada Day and 1 day preceding Victoria Day and Canada Day. That the amended bylaw be adopted and posted on the Town of Grimsby's website and be advertised to residents to advise the community of this change leading up to Canada Day 2023. Councillor Sharwa, would you like to start the discussion?
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. So I thought this was a fair middle ground. Currently, right now, the bylaw allows people to do fireworks for 10 days, and it's very random, and it is very distressing for a number of people. So this way, at least, I feel like this is a middle ground. It's 2 days on Victoria Day and the day before. So anybody that, does have a lot of issues, that they can at least prepare for it, and they know that something could be coming. So just be ready for it. 10 days is just too long. So I'm just hoping that we can pass this through and help our residents. Thank you.
Councillor Howe.
Through you, Mayor. And I mentioned it to Ronnie, a friendly amendment to this. And I never realized that the time was midnight. I'm used to the Centennial Park where, we'd finish up right at dark and we had a great night. But what about moving it to 11 p.m.? I don't know who sets fireworks off at midnight, but I think they came from the hotel. What do you think?
I'm fine with that friendly amendment. Thank you.
Well, if no one else brings it up, I'd just like to add the Saturday night, because quite often people will have an event Saturday, Sunday, or the Monday. Being a Saturday night, I think that does make some sense because it is a full weekend. I wouldn't push it to the Friday night, but that would just allow us 3 days rather than the 10 that we allow now.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that if we try this for this year, and then we'll see how it goes, and maybe I'll be back again next year.
All right, so what we're going to do, we've read the notice of motion out, so now we just need a mover and seconder for the notice of motion, which has turned into a resolution. So we have Councillor Charwa as the mover, so we just need a seconder. Councillor Howe. So now we're voting on the amendments, the two amendments, friendly amendments that came through, so I can say all in favor.
Yeah, can you read it again? Can you just read
In
it?
favor?
All right, I'll read the resolution again. Yeah. Moved by Councillor Charwa, seconded by Councillor Howe. Whereas the Town of Grimsby Bylaw 20-41 allows for the discharge of consumer fireworks between dusk and midnight on Victoria Day and Canada Day, or each of 2 days immediately preceding or 7 days immediately following both Victoria Day and Canada Day. Whereas discharge of fireworks, while enjoyable for some, can cause distress to children, adults with PTSD, pets, and wildlife. Therefore, be it resolved that Bylaw 20-41 be amended to limit the discharge of consumer fireworks between dusk and 11 p.m. on Victoria Day, Canada Day, and the 2 days preceding Victoria Day and Canada Day, that being Saturday and Sunday. That the amended bylaw be adopted and posted on the Town of Grimsby's website and be advertised to residents to advise the community of this change leading up to Canada Day 2023. All in favor?
In favor?
Why don't we do e-scribe on this?
I'm in favor, Mayor Jordan.
All right, I think it carried anyway. Councillor Bradley, did you vote?
Vote on e-scribe?
Well, why don't we vote on e-scribe? We can probably use the practice. So that was passed unanimously.
Mayor Jordan, could my two notice of motions be heard tonight as well? Could we take a vote to see if that's possible?
I think the problem of hearing your notice of motion tonight is that that it's timing for a report to be done, because of this notice of motion will generate a report that needs to be done, and we can't do it on the spot. So I'll read the notice of motions. Introduction date June 5th, 2023. Subject Roberts Road Citizen Petition requested by Councillor Vardy. Whereas speeding has been an ongoing concern of residents on Roberts Road. Whereas the following petition signed by residents on Roberts Road and was sent to all councillors was received by town staff. Whereas the petition was signed by 21 area residents. Whereas the petition asks that the town ask the town for 3 sets of low-level speed humps that allow vehicular traffic to cross over at 40 kilometers an hour, or 2 sets of speed humps between Evergreen and Main Streets, and whereas the petition also requests a 4-way stop be installed at Roberts and Evergreen, whereas the petition further requests a reduction in the maximum speed on Roberts Road be reduced to 40 kilometers per hour, whereas the area be considered as a pilot for future asks in the town of Grimsby, and therefore be it resolved that the staff prepare a report with a recommendation considering the requests within the petition. Be it further resolved that the costing for each of the options be part of the considerations, including staff's preferred option, and that the 2023 Public Works Plan be part of the deliberations. Be it further resolved that this report and recommendation be brought to the Public Works Standing Committee for their consideration on July 24th, 2023, and for council approval at the August 8th, 2023 meeting. I acknowledge that this notice of motion will be given consideration at the July 4th, 2023 council meeting. Notice of motion, introduction date, June 5th, 2023, subjects fireworks bylaw. Council, oh wait, that one's done. I thought there was another one. Oh, well, never mind.
There is another one, Mayor Jordan.
All right, found it. Whereas the notice of motion presented by Councillor Vardy. Whereas the safety of our residents is a primary concern, and whereas the focus on safer streets, including sidewalks, parking, and traffic calming measures, are a stated goal in our strategic priorities, and whereas many communities in Ontario are moving to reduce speed of 40 kilometers an hour on residential roads, including Lincoln and St. Catharines in Niagara, and is under consideration in Niagara Falls. Whereas many streets in Grimsby have no sidewalks, highlighting the need for safer streets for pedestrians. Therefore, be it resolved that the town considered moving expeditiously to pilot a speed reduction program on streets that have been identified as areas of concern, and the speed limit on those identified residential streets be reduced for 40 kilometers an hour. I acknowledge that this notice of motion will be given consideration at the July 4th, 2023 council meeting.
Just quick, so this will give council a chance to give us some sort of report that talks about what the impact will be or the cost or any of that stuff will be, and that way we can vote on it and have a good idea of what the implications of this are. Just, yeah, perfect. Thank you.
All right, so now we move to correspondence. The Town of Grimsby Mental Health, Homelessness, and Addiction Crisis Declaration. We need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Sharwa, second by Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Sharwa, second by Councillor Frake. Whereas at its May 15th, 2023 meeting of Town Council, Council heard a delegation from Mr. Stephen Seuss requesting that the Town of Grimsby declare a state of emergency on mental health, homelessness, and addiction, and whereas the Niagara region, the cities of St. Catharines, Thorold, Welland, and Hamilton have all declared a state of emergency on mental health, homelessness, and addiction, and whereas the Town of Grimsby lacks the jurisdiction and the financial and technical resources to meaningfully address systemic gaps in effective service delivery to those experiencing homelessness, mental health, and addiction. Therefore, be it resolved that Grimsby Town Council declare a mental health, homelessness, and addiction crisis in the Town of Grimsby. Be it further resolved that the town call on the federal and provincial governments to declare national and provincial states of emergencies on mental health, homelessness, and addiction. Be it further resolved that the resolution be circulated to all Niagara area municipalities of the Office of the Premier of Ontario, the Federal Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion, the Provincial Minister of Municipal Affairs, Housing, a Niagara area MPPs and MPs, the Ontario Solicitor General, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Provincial Minister of Community and Social Services, all Niagara area community living associations, that's Grimsby, Lincoln, West Lincoln, Fort Erie, Port Colborne, Waynfleet, St. Catharines, Welland, and Pelham, the Federal Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, and the Deputy Minister, Chrystia Freeland. All in favor? That's carried. All right, the Bylaw 2353 tax rates memos. Just need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor DeVoley, second by Councillor Howe. So we're not voting on this, right? It's just okay. So no motions are required on that. Resolved that both pieces of correspondence from the town be received. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we move to Regional Councillor update. Councillor Seaborn, good evening.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I'm delighted to be able to say that half of what I wanted to speak about you've already known about, so I can really cut my little spiel a bit closer to a short period of time. We have a new acting Commissioner of Transportation at the region. Dan Carnegie comes from a long history of work with the region. Most recently, he was the CAO for the town or the city of St. Catharines. So we say goodbye to Bruce Swaniga. He was a very helpful person, and I think he'll be well missed. You also heard that the region is going to commit to a net zero on corporate greenhouse gas emissions. We're trying to follow the guidelines of several other municipalities and regions. The target will support action of climate change and align us with other municipalities. We also recently celebrated National Public Works Week, and the Niagara region claimed the top spot for Ontario Waterworks Association, the water test. I'm sure you've mentioned that around here, but I wanted to say that we're very proud of the fact that we've done it for 2 years in a row. Wastewater and Water Division of Niagara produces safe water. It takes care of 11 municipalities through 6 treatment plants, 21 remote water storage facilities, 7 dedicated chlorine and water pumping stations, on and on and on. So they're doing a great job, and we're all very proud of our great water supply. Around town, and I'm doing this a little bit differently than I normally would because the biggest thing on here is the Bill 97, and we're going to skim right over that. So for around town, I want to give a shout out to the students from Carnes Christian School who raised over $25,000 through their fundraising efforts for McNally House, and it's something they do each year during their Hike for Hospice. John Kelvin Christian School did a great job as well, reaching just over $18,000. Now, these proceeds go towards the operating expenses for McNally House each year. And this year as well, the Firefighters Association donated $15,000 of their boot drive that was recently held, and that goes towards different food items and other stuff like that for McNally House. I'm going to remind everybody that the farmers market is back in town, so if you happen to try and drive through Grimsby last Thursday, you probably would have been detoured. We are working with the region to try and get the lights adjusted so that your wait isn't quite so long. I hoped that worked. So they'll be back again this week and continue right up until Thanksgiving. So my last thing was on the regional or the provincial Bill 97, and it sounds to me like you've probably heard that already through your planning department. I have sent a rather extensive report, but I did want to just add one little thing here because there was such an outcry from 14 different agricultural commodity groups that according to the OFA president, The provincial government will now not be moving ahead with the 3-lot severance proposal and will extend the consultation period for all the rest of the parts of Bill 97 up until July 1st, I believe it is. So I think that's good news on a lot of things. I think there's a few parts of that particular bill that should be kind of scary from a municipal point of view. It somewhat tells you that you're going to have more responsibility but no guidelines. So I'm really glad to hear that they're going to be opening that up a bit further for more consultation. So I didn't even get a buzzer, so I made it within 10 minutes.
Thank you, Regional Councilor Seaborg. Any questions for Regional Councilor? No, I don't see any.
Thanks very much.
All right, we need a mover and seconder to introduce the bylaws. Moved by Councilor Frake, second by Councilor Howe. Moved by Councilor Frake, second by Councilor Howe. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 23-47 to 23-53 inclusive and 23-55 as amended, and that same be read a first time, considered, and passed. All in favor? That's carried. Next council meeting is scheduled for July 4th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. See everyone then. We're moving into closed session right now. Need a mover and seconder to move into closed. Moved by Councilor Davoli. Second by Councilor Frieg. Moved by Councilor Davoli, second by Councilor Frake. Resolved that council meet in closed session under Section 2392F of the Municipal Act, where a closed session meeting is held if subject matter being considered is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and Section 2392B of the Municipal Act, where a closed meeting is held if the subject matter being considered pertains to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. All in favor to go into closed? That's carried. Yeah. All right, because we have a councillor participating electronically, we need to read the electronic closed session statement declaration. Good evening, members of council. Before we begin the closed session, all members are reminded that any discussions in closed are to remain confidential as per procedural bylaw and our code of conduct for the council of the town of Grimsby. Before we begin, I need each member who is attending electronically to confirm the following: that you understand that matters are to remain confidential, you confirm that no one else is present with you, confirm that no one else can hear this closed session, confirm that you are not using any electronic devices other than your tablet or computer for the purpose of this video conferencing only, and confirm that you're not recording this portion of the meeting. If you acknowledge to all of the above, please reply with "I understand" and confirm to all the statements. Councillor Vardy?
I understand and confirm. The only exception is I am on a cell phone, not an iPad.
All right, thank you, Councillor Vardy. That'll be noted. We're now moving into closed. Oh, yeah. Need a mover and seconder to approve the direction carried and closed. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Davoli. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Davoli. Resolved that the direction provided in closed session be approved. All in favor? That's carried. Need a mover and seconder for the confirming bylaw. Councillor Davoli, Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor Davoli, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 23-54 and that same be read a first time, considered and passed. All in favor? That's carried. Meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone.